You've probably seen snow, maybe even a rough winter, but in 1836 the Rocky Mountains buried hundreds of trappers under snow so deep they couldn't find their own cabins. Some starved, some froze, some boiled their boots and ate them. Here's how a handful of mountain men survived the deadliest winter in American frontier history. If survival stories like this keep you company late at night, hit subscribe. And I'm curious, where are you listening from right now? Drop your city and the time in the comments. Always love seeing where these stories end up. Right now, you're probably somewhere warm, maybe wrapped in a blanket, maybe sinking into a pillow. You've got water within arm's reach, food in the next room. That's not where we're going tonight. Tonight, we're going back to a world where survival meant doing things you never thought you'd do. Where the mountains weren't beautiful, they were trying to kill you, and where the only thing standing between you and death was your own stubbornness. So settle in, get comfortable, because you're about to spend a winter in the Rockies with some of the toughest men who ever lived. And by morning, you'll understand exactly what survival really costs. The smell hits you first, not the snow, not yet. The smell. It's September 1836, and you're standing on the banks of the Green River in what will someday be Wyoming. Right now, it's just wilderness, endless, trackless wilderness stretching in every direction until the mountains swallow the horizon. Your name is Elijah Morgan. You're 23 years old. You've been in these mountains for 2 years now, trapping beaver, learning the country, trying not to die. So far, so good. But this morning, something feels different. The rendezvous ended 3 weeks ago. That annual gathering where trappers from across the Rockies came together to trade their furs, resupply, drink themselves stupid, and remember what it felt like to see another human face. It was smaller this year. Everyone noticed. Fewer supply wagons, fewer traders, fewer trappers willing to make the journey. The beaver are getting scarce, trapped out stream by stream, valley by valley after 2 decades of relentless hunting. And the word from back east is that fashion is changing. Silk hats are becoming the thing now. Beaver felt is going out of style. You don't care much about fashion. You care about the $300 worth of pelts you need to collect before next summer's rendezvous. You care about surviving long enough to spend it. But right now, standing by the river, watching the water catch the morning light, you care about that smell. It's the air itself. Something in it. Something that wasn't there yesterday. The old-timers would call it a heaviness, a weight that settles in your chest when you breathe deep. It smells like snow waiting to fall, like winter creeping down from the high country weeks ahead of schedule. You're camped with Jim Bridger's brigade, about 30 men altogether, trappers and camp keepers, preparing to head north toward the Yellowstone River for the fall hunt. Bridger himself is maybe 50 feet away, crouched by the fire, talking with a Crow Scout who rode into camp at dawn. You can't hear what they're saying, but you can see Bridger's face, and Jim Bridger doesn't worry about much. The man survived a grizzly attack that left him with an arrowhead lodged in his back for 3 years. He's been in these mountains since he was 17, longer than you've been alive. He knows the country like he knows his own hands. Right now, he looks worried. You finish your coffee. It's weak. They cut the rations at Rendezvous this year because supplies were short. Everything's getting short. The beaver, the supplies, the easy money, the future. But that's tomorrow's problem. Today, you've got traps to set and pelts to collect. You dump the last of the coffee onto the fire, watch the coals hiss and steam, and turn toward your horse. That's when Bridger calls your name. Morgan, come here a minute. You walk over. The Crow Scout watches you approach with eyes that give nothing away. His name, you'll learn later, is Two Horses. He's been living in these mountains for 40 winters. He knows things that would take you another lifetime to learn. Bridger doesn't waste time on pleasantries. The crows say this winter's going to be bad. Real bad. They're reading the signs. Beaver pelts coming in thick. Elk moving south early. Squirrels hoarding more than usual. You've heard this before. Every year somebody predicts a hard winter. Sometimes they're right. Mostly you survive anyway. How bad, you ask? Bridger looks at the Crow Scout. The scout says nothing. His silence says everything. Bad enough that they're moving their whole village down to the lowlands. Soon. Maybe tomorrow. Bridger scratches his beard. That's unusual. Crow usually winter in the Yellowstone country. Good hunting there. Sheltered valleys. But they're leaving. So what do? We trap. That's what we do. Bridger stands, stretches his back, grimaces at some old injury that never quite healed. But we trap smart. We find good winter ground early, build the cabin solid, stock up on meat while we can, and we pray to whatever god you believe in that the crow are wrong. He walks away. The conversation is over. You stand there for a moment looking at the mountains. They look the same as always. Beautiful. Deadly. Indifferent to whether you live or die. You've survived 2 winters already. The first one nearly killed you. Frostbite took 2 toes from your left foot. You still limp a little when it gets cold. The second winter was easier. You knew what to expect. You knew how to prepare. But something about this morning, something about the weight in the air and the worry on Bridger's face and the silence of the Crow Scout makes you think that everything you learned in those 2 winters might not be enough. You push the thought away. You've got work to do. The brigade breaks camp an hour later. 30 men, 60 horses, 200 steel traps, enough powder, and lead to fight a small war, and enough food to last maybe 6 weeks if you're careful. After that, you hunt or you starve. That's the deal you made when you came to the mountains. Nobody forced you. You wanted this life. The freedom, the adventure, the chance to make your fortune in a land where fortunes were still there for the taking. Now, you just have to survive it. The ride north takes 3 weeks. You follow rivers and valleys, ancient paths that the native tribes have used for generations, routes that the mountain men have mapped in their heads, because most of them can't read or write. Bridger could draw you a map of every stream and peak from here to the Pacific Ocean, accurate down to the mile. He carries the whole country in his mind like a photograph. You carry your rifle across your saddle, your pistol is tucked in your belt, your knife hangs from your hip, your possibles bag holds everything else you own. Flint and steel, spare bullets, a needle and thread for repairs, a small Bible that your mother gave you when you left home, the pages soft from handling, the words familiar as your own heartbeat. You don't know it yet, but you'll need that Bible before spring. The country changes as you ride north. The valleys narrow. The mountains grow higher, their peaks already white with early snow. The air gets thinner, colder, sharper in your lungs. By October you can see your breath hanging in the air even at midday. The brigade is trapping as you go, setting lines along the streams, checking them at dawn, skinning the beaver and scraping the pelts and packing them for transport. It's hard work, cold work, the kind of work that leaves your hands cracked and bleeding by the end of each day, but it's honest work, and it pays. A prime beaver pelt is worth $4, maybe $5 if the buyer's in a good mood. A good trapper can take 60 pelts in a season. That's real money. Enough to live on for a year back in civilization. Enough to buy land, start a farm, settle down with a wife and forget you ever froze your toes off in the Rockies. Most trappers never make it that far. They spend their earnings at rendezvous on whiskey and gambling and women and more supplies for another season. The mountains get in your blood. The freedom becomes a prison. You tell yourself you'll quit next year. You never do. But that's a problem for survivors. Right now, in October of 1836, you're just trying to make it through one more winter. The brigade reaches the Yellowstone country in early November. It's beautiful here. The river cuts through a valley that seems designed by God himself for wintering. Sheltered from the worst winds, good timber for building, streams full of beaver, and the geothermal springs, those strange pools of hot water that bubble up from the earth like something from a dream, that could keep a man warm on the coldest nights if he camped close enough. This is where Bridger's brigade will spend the winter. This is where you'll try to survive. The cabins go up fast. You've done this before. Everyone has. Find a good spot with timber nearby. Cut logs about 8 inches thick. Notch the ends so they fit together at the corners. Stack them up, chinked with mud and moss to keep out the wind. Cover the roof with poles and bark and dirt. Build a fireplace if you're lucky enough to find flat stones. Dig a fire pit in the centre if you're not. Your cabin is small, 10 feet by 12 maybe. Big enough for you and 2 other trappers, men named Jacob Hawkins and William Cole. Jacob's been in the mountains 5 years. William's a greenhorn his first season, still learning which end of the trap goes in the water. You're somewhere in between. Not quite a veteran, not quite a fool. The 3 of you work for 2 weeks straight. Cutting, building, chinking. Testing the fireplace until it draws properly and doesn't fill the cabin with smoke. Laying in a supply of firewood. Hunting when you can. Drying the meat over slow fires. Packing it away in rawhide containers for the lean months ahead. By mid-November, the cabin is done. It's not much to look at. Squat and dark and rough as the men who built it. But it's solid. It will keep out the wind. It will hold the heat. It will be your home until spring. That night, you eat well. Elk steaks roasted over the fire. Coffee, the last of your good supply. A bit of sugar that William's been hoarding since rendezvous. You tell stories and laugh and pretend that the winter ahead will be like the winters before. None of you believe it. You've all seen the signs. The beaver pelts coming in thicker than anyone can remember. The elk already moving south weeks early. The squirrels frantic with hoarding. Their caches bigger than they've ever been. The Shoshone who passed through last week. Heading down to the plains. Looking at the mountains with expressions you couldn't quite read. The crow were right. The signs are all there. You just have to know how to see them. That night, after Jacob and William are asleep, you lie awake on your bed of pine boughs, wrapped in your buffalo robe, staring at the log ceiling 6 feet above your face. The fire has burned down to coals. The darkness is absolute. The only sound is the wind outside testing the walls looking for a way in. You think about home, a farm in Missouri, green fields in summer, your mother's cooking, your father's voice, rough and kind, telling you stories about the frontier before you ever thought about seeing it for yourself. You left all that behind. Came west at 21 with nothing but a horse and a rifle and a head full of dreams. Found work with the fur companies. Learned to trap, to shoot, to survive. Made friends with men who would die for you, and men who would rob you blind. Saw things that would haunt your dreams forever. Killed 2 men, both in self-defense, both necessary, both regrettable. And here you are, 23 years old, lying in a log cabin at the end of the world, waiting for a winter that might kill you. You close your eyes, you try to sleep. Outside, the first flakes begin to fall. It starts soft. Just a whisper of white drifting down through the darkness. You wake to it. That strange silence that only snow can bring. And when you crack the door open, you see maybe an inch on the ground. Nothing serious. Nothing to worry about. By noon, there's 6 inches. By evening, a foot. By the next morning, 2 feet and still falling. This isn't the light, manageable snow of a normal Rocky Mountain autumn. This is heavy, wet, dense. The kind of snow that bends the pine trees double under its weight. The kind that piles up faster than it can melt. The kind that turns the world white and keeps it that way. For 3 days, it doesn't stop. You take shifts shoveling out the door, clearing paths to the wood pile, checking that the chimney isn't blocked. The cabin groans under the weight accumulating on the roof. At night you can hear the timbers shifting, settling, protesting. On the 4th day, it stops. The sun breaks through, blinding and cold, and you step outside to see a transformed world. The valley is buried. The trees are bent under loads of white. The river is hidden, its voice muffled, its banks are raised by endless drifts. And the temperature is dropping. You can feel it in your bones. That deep, aching cold that goes beyond discomfort into something primal. Something that reminds you that humans weren't made for this. That you're a warm-blooded animal wrapped in wool and leather, trying to survive in a land that doesn't care whether you live or die. Jacob comes out behind you, stands there, silent, breath steaming. This is just the beginning, he says. He's right. Over the next 2 weeks, 3 more storms hit, each one worse than the last, each one adding another foot, another 2 feet, another layer to the prison rising around you. By early December, the snow in the valley is waist deep. In the high country, the passes and ridges, it's over a man's head. The river freezes solid. You can walk on it now if you're careful, if you test each step before committing your weight. The ice is thick enough to hold a horse, thick enough to trap a man who falls through a weak spot. The game disappears. The elk have migrated down to lower elevations, seeking ground where the snow isn't so deep. The deer have vanished into the thick timber. Even the rabbits seem to have burrowed deep under the drifts, invisible, unreachable. And the wolves, God, the wolves. You hear them first, before you see them. A howling that starts somewhere in the darkness beyond the firelight and spreads, voice after voice, joining until it seems like the whole mountain is singing. It's beautiful. It's terrifying. It's the sound of hungry things gathering, calculating, waiting. One morning you wake to find tracks in the snow outside the cabin door. Wolf tracks, coming right up to the threshold and stopping, as if something stood there in the night, sniffing at the crack beneath the door, testing your defences. You don't go out alone anymore. Nobody does. The routine becomes survival. Wake at dawn, build up the fire, melt snow for water, eat sparingly from your dwindling supplies, venture out in groups to check traps, gather firewood, hunt for anything that moves, come back before dark, always before dark. The days are short now. The sun rises late and sets early. In between, it barely clears the mountains, casting long shadows across the snow. Most of your time is spent in darkness, sitting by the fire, mending gear, telling stories to pass the hours. You tell Jacob about your mother's apple pie. He tells you about a girl he loved in St. Louis, the one who wouldn't wait for him, the one who married someone else. William talks about his plans, the fortune he's going to make, the land he's going to buy, the life he's going to build when this is all over. None of you talk about the cold, the hunger that's starting to gnaw at your belly, the fear that creeps in when the fire burns low and the wind howls outside, and you realise just how far you are from anything resembling safety. You're 3 men in a log box, buried in snow, surrounded by wolves, watching your food supply shrink a little more each day. And the winter is just getting started. By mid-December, the situation is getting serious. You've eaten through half your dried meat. The hunting is almost impossible now. Every trip outside is a battle against snow that reaches your thighs, against cold that numbs your hands in minutes, against a landscape that all looks the same, white and featureless and deadly. You lose a man from the brigade. His name was Charles, a trapper from Kentucky, quiet, kept to himself. He went out to check his traps one morning and didn't come back. They found him 3 days later, half a mile from camp. He'd broken through the ice crossing a stream, managed to pull himself out, made it maybe 100 yards before the cold took him. He was frozen solid by the time they found him, curled up at the base of a tree like he'd just laid down to rest. They couldn't bury him. The ground was frozen too hard. They piled rocks on the body and left him there. The wolves would find him eventually. Everyone knew it. Nobody said it out loud. That night, you lie awake again, listening to the wind, counting the days until spring, counting the meals left in your supply, counting the men in the brigade and wondering which ones won't make it. Outside, the snow falls and falls and falls, and somewhere in the darkness the wolves are singing. Christmas comes and goes. You don't celebrate. There's nothing to celebrate with. The snow hasn't stopped. Not really. A day here, 2 days there, then another storm rolls in from the west and buries everything again. By late December, you've stopped measuring it in feet. It's just everywhere. Above your head in some places, chest deep even in the sheltered spots near the cabin, your food is running low, real low. The dried elk meat that seemed like plenty back in November is maybe 2 weeks worth now, stretched thin between 3 hungry men. Jacob's taken to counting the pieces each morning, rationing them out like gold coins, watching your eyes to make sure you don't take more than your share. You don't blame him. You'd do the same. The cold is something else entirely. You thought you knew cold. 2 winters in the mountains taught you about frostbite and frozen fingers, and the way your breath freezes in your beard until you're wearing a mask of ice. But this is different. This is cold that finds every gap in your clothing, every crack in the cabin walls, every weakness in your defences. Cold that makes the logs pop and crack in the night like gunshots. Cold that turns your water bucket to solid ice within an hour of bringing it inside. One morning you wake up and the fire has died down to coals. The cabin temperature has dropped so far that your buffalo robe is stiff, frozen with the moisture from your own breath. You can't feel your feet. You spend 20 minutes by the rebuilt fire rubbing them, praying you haven't lost more toes. You haven't. Not yet. But it's close. Too close. That afternoon, Bridger calls the brigade together. It takes an hour just to assemble everyone. Men trudging through the drifts from their scattered cabins, breath steaming, faces wrapped in scarves and furs until only their eyes show. You try to count heads as they gather. Hard to tell with everyone bundled up like that, but you can see the gaps. Charles is dead. 2 others went out hunting a week ago and never came back. Another man, a greenhorn whose name you never learned, froze in his sleep when his fire went out, and his cabin mates were too exhausted to notice. The brigade is shrinking. You don't want to count how much. Bridger looks older than he did in September. The winter is wearing on everyone, but it seems to weigh heavier on him. He's responsible for all of you. Every death sits on his shoulders. "We need to talk about the cabins," he says. Nobody speaks. You all know what's coming. The cabins aren't working. They're not warm enough. The walls are too thin, the gaps too many, the cold too relentless. You're burning through firewood twice as fast as you planned, and the wood piles are shrinking faster than you can replace them. Every trip to gather more is a gamble with your life. "The Crow showed me something years back," Bridger continues, "and I've seen the Inuit do it up north. They bury themselves in snow. Sounds crazy, I know, but snow holds air. Air keeps heat in. A buried cabin stays warmer than one sitting in the wind. Jacob speaks up from beside you. You want us to bury our cabin? In snow? I want you to let the snow bury it, then pack more on top. Cover everything except the door and the chimney. Turn your cabin into a snow cave with log walls inside. Silence. You can see the men thinking it through. Some of them look skeptical. Some look desperate enough to try anything. Won't the roof collapse? Someone asks. Not if you built it right. The poles can handle the weight. You just need to keep the chimney clear so the smoke can get out. And if the chimney blocks, Bridger's face hardens, then you clear it, or you choke on smoke, or you freeze. Those are your choices. The meeting breaks up. Men trudge back to their cabins, talking in low voices, weighing the risk against the alternative. You walk with Jacob and William, none of you speaking until you're back inside, the door closed against the cold, the fire crackling weakly in the hearth. What do you think? William asks. He's the youngest of the three of you, still looks to you and Jacob for guidance. Jacob stares at the fire. I think we're going to freeze to death if we don't try something. That's answer enough. You start the next morning. The work is brutal, made worse by the fact that you can barely feel your hands most of the time. But the basic idea is simple. Let the snow pile up against the walls instead of shoveling it away. Pack it down, add more. Keep adding until the cabin is buried up to the roof line. The first day, you work on the north wall. That's where the wind hits hardest, where the cold seems to seep through no matter how much moss you've stuffed in the gaps. You take the snow that's already drifted there and pack it tight against the logs. Then you shovel more on top. Pack it again. More. Pack. More. By evening, the north wall is covered in a layer of snow 3 feet thick. You can't see the logs anymore. Just a white slope running from the ground up past the edge of the roof. You go inside, close the door, build up the fire, and you wait. Within an hour you feel the difference. The wall isn't bleeding cold anymore. The heat from the fire stays where it belongs, inside the cabin, instead of leaking out through every gap and crack. The temperature rises, not much, but enough that you can take off your outer coat, enough that the water bucket doesn't freeze solid by morning. It's working, William says, wonder in his voice. He's sitting closer to the fire than he has in weeks, actually comfortable for the first time since November. Jacob just nods. He's already planning the next day's work. Over the following week you bury the entire cabin. South wall, east wall, west wall. The roof is trickier. You have to climb up there, shoveling snow onto the bark and dirt covering, building it up layer by layer while being careful not to add so much weight that the whole thing caves in. It's terrifying work. One wrong step and you punch through into the cabin below. One miscalculation and you bury yourself and your partners alive. But you do it slowly, carefully, handful by handful. When you're finished, the cabin has disappeared. From a distance, there's nothing to see but a mound of snow, maybe 10 feet high, with a thin trail of smoke rising from a hole near the top. You could ride right past it and never know anyone was inside. The whole camp looks like that now. A dozen snow mounds scattered through the valley. A dozen thin columns of smoke, signs of life in a landscape that seems determined to extinguish it. Inside, the effect is dramatic. The buried cabin holds heat like nothing you've ever experienced. The fire that used to barely keep you alive now makes the space almost cozy. You can strip down to your shirt without shivering. You can sleep without your buffalo robe pulled over your head. You can almost forget for a few hours at a time that the temperature outside is cold enough to kill you in minutes. The science of it makes sense, even if you don't have the words to explain it. Snow is full of tiny air pockets, millions of them, and air is one of the best insulators there is. A thick layer of packed snow works almost as well as a proper wall, maybe better. The Inuit figured this out centuries ago, building their homes entirely from snow, surviving winters that would kill any white man in a week. The Crow knew it too. They'd been burying their lodges in snow since before your grandfather was born. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Sometimes the people who've been here longest know things that fancy education back east can't teach. The temperature difference is real. You can measure it in a rough way. Outside it's cold enough that spit freezes before it hits the ground. Inside the buried cabin, with a small fire going, it's maybe 20 degrees warmer, 30 on a good day. Still cold by any normal standard. Still cold enough that you keep your coat nearby. But survivable, bearable. The difference between slow death and holding on. But burying the cabin creates new problems. Problems nobody warned you about. The first problem is the smoke. Before, when the cabin sat open to the air, the smoke from your fire had plenty of places to go. Up the chimney, sure, but also through the gaps in the walls, through the cracks around the door, through 100 tiny openings that you cursed in the cold, but that also kept you breathing. Now, with the cabin sealed tight under layers of packed snow, the smoke has nowhere to escape except up the chimney. And the chimney blocks, constantly. Snow drifts over the opening. Ice forms around the edges. One night you wake up choking, gasping, stumbling for the door in total darkness because you can't see through the haze filling the cabin. You burst outside into the freezing air, coughing, spitting, your lungs burning from the smoke you've been breathing in your sleep. Jacob and William are right behind you. William is on his knees in the snow, vomiting. Jacob's eyes are streaming. None of you speak for a long moment. You just stand there, half dressed in the killing cold, trying to clear your lungs. The chimney, Jacob finally manages, has to be blocked. It is. A foot of snow has drifted over the hole during the night. You climb up on the roof, your bare feet going numb in seconds, and clear it with your hands. The smoke starts flowing again. You go back inside, but you don't go back to sleep. None of you do. You sit by the fire, watching the smoke rise, making sure the chimney stays clear, waiting for dawn. From then on, you keep a long pole inside the cabin. Every few hours, someone goes outside and uses it to poke at the chimney opening, knocking away any ice or snow that's accumulated. At night, you take shifts. One man sleeps while the others watch the smoke. If it starts backing up, you clear the blockage before it can fill the cabin. It works, mostly. But there's another danger, one you don't learn about until it's too late. A man named Robert Hayes winters in a cabin on the other side of the valley. 4 men total in that cabin, all experienced trappers, all veterans of hard winters. They bury their cabin just like you do. They watch their chimney just like you do. They take all the same precautions, but one night, something goes wrong. Maybe the chimney blocked and nobody noticed. Maybe the fire burned hotter than usual and used up all the good air. Maybe it was something else entirely, something invisible and odorless that crept through the cabin while they slept. When the other trappers check on them 3 days later, all 4 men are dead. You're there when they find them. You volunteered to go because Robert Hayes was a decent man who once shared his tobacco with you at rendezvous. You owed him that much at least. The walk takes 2 hours, fighting through drifts that reach your chest in places. By the time you reach the buried cabin, you're exhausted, sweating under your furs despite the cold. The door is frozen shut. Takes 3 of you to force it open. Inside, the air is stale, dead. The fire has long since gone out. Frost covers everything, a thin white layer on the walls and floor and the 4 bodies lying in their beds. No wounds, No signs of struggle, no indication that anything went wrong at all. Robert is lying on his back, buffalo robe pulled up to his chin, face peaceful, like he just went to sleep, like he's still sleeping, but his skin is wrong, greyish, wax, and when you touch his shoulder, he's frozen solid, been dead for days. The other three are the same, peaceful, frozen, gone. Bridger says it's the smoke. Not the kind you can see and smell, but something else. Something that comes from fires burning in enclosed spaces without enough fresh air. Something that kills you quiet in your sleep, without giving you a chance to fight back. The fire eats the good air, he says, replaces it with something bad, something that puts you to sleep and doesn't let you wake up. You don't understand the science, nobody does. Men back east in their universities might have a name for it, might be able to explain what happens when a fire consumes all the breathable air in a sealed room. But out here, all you know is that 4 good men went to sleep one night and never woke up. And it could just as easily have been you. That's the thought that stays with you as you help carry the bodies outside, as you pile rocks on them because the ground is too frozen to dig, as you walk back to your own buried cabin in the gathering dusk, watching the smoke rise from the chimney hole, wondering if tonight will be the night your fire betrays you too. You don't understand the science, but you understand the lesson. That night you crack the door open, just an inch, just enough to let fresh air slip in around the buffalo robe you've hung as a barrier. It lets in cold too. The temperature in the cabin drops, but you can breathe, and breathing matters more than comfort. From then on, you never seal the cabin completely. You always leave a gap. You always let in a little of the killing cold because the alternative is worse. The other problem with burying the cabin is the darkness. Before, some light came through the gaps. Not much. The winter sun barely clears the mountains and it sets by mid-afternoon anyway. But there was something. A dim glow during the day. Enough to see by if you were close to the walls. Now, with the cabin buried under feet of packed snow, no light gets in at all. Day and night are the same inside. 24 hours of unbroken darkness, broken only by the glow of the fire, and you can't keep the fire going all the time. Not if you want the wood to last. Not if you want to survive until spring. So you spend hours in the dark, sitting, waiting, listening to the wind outside, listening to each other breathe, listening to your own thoughts, which is maybe the worst part of all. You try to fill the time, mending gear by touch, your fingers finding the holes and tears without needing to see them, telling stories, the same stories you've told 100 times until you know every word by heart, playing cards, except you've lost half the deck and nobody can remember the rules to anything complicated. Mostly, you just sit and think, and try not to count the days until spring. The darkness does something to a man. It gets inside your head, makes the hours stretch until they feel like days, makes the walls feel closer than they are, makes the world outside seem like a dream, something you made up, something that might not exist anymore. William starts talking to himself, nothing crazy, just mumbling under his breath when he thinks nobody can hear. Conversations with people who aren't there, his mother, his sweetheart back in Ohio, a brother who died of fever 3 years ago. You pretend not to notice. Jacob does the same. It's not hurting anyone. And maybe it helps William hold on to something, some piece of himself that the darkness is trying to take away. You think about your own family, your mother's face, your father's voice, the farm in Missouri, green and warm and impossibly far away. You wonder if they think about you, if they know where you are, if they have any idea what you're going through. They don't. They can't. This world, this frozen prison, is beyond anything they could imagine. beyond anything you could have imagined back when you were a boy dreaming of adventure. You wanted to see the wilderness. Well, here it is. One evening, when the fires burned low and the darkness is thick enough to touch, Jacob speaks into the silence. We're not going to make it. You don't answer. Neither does William. The food's almost gone. We haven't caught anything in weeks. The snow's not letting up, and spring is still months away. We'll figure something out, you say, but your voice sounds hollow even to your own ears. Will we? Because right now, the way I see it, we've got maybe 2 weeks of food left, and then we either find game, or we eat the horses, or we starve. Those are the options. The fire crackles. Sparks drift up toward the smoke hole. We could try the lower valleys, William says. The game went down there when the snow got deep. Maybe we could... 3 days travel through chest-deep snow, with no guarantee of finding anything. We'd die before we got halfway. Silence again, the truth sitting heavy in the darkness between you. So what do we do? William's voice is small, afraid. Jacob doesn't answer. He doesn't have an answer. Neither do you. You sit there in the dark, in the buried cabin that's keeping you alive and slowly driving you crazy, listening to the wind howl outside, counting the heartbeats until morning, wondering if the morning will bring anything different, wondering if it matters. The cold, the dark, the hunger, the fear. This is what survival looks like. Somewhere in the darkness a wolf howls, then another, then a whole chorus of them, rising and falling, echoing off the frozen mountains. They're out there, waiting, hungry, just like you. The firewood runs out faster than you expected. You'd stockpiled what seemed like enough for the whole winter. Cords of it stacked against the cabin wall, split and dried and ready to burn. But that was before you understood what this winter would demand. Before the cold forced you to keep the fire going day and night just to stay alive. Before the buried cabin made every log burn hotter and faster, because there was nowhere for the heat to escape. By early January the wood pile is half gone. By mid-January it's down to maybe 3 weeks' worth, and every trip to gather more is a fight for your life. The nearest stand of dead timber is a 1/4 mile from the cabin. In normal times that's a 10-minute walk. Now, with snow up to your chest and temperatures that freeze exposed skin in minutes, it's an hour-long ordeal. You have to break trail through the drifts, rest every 100 feet to catch your breath, then start again. By the time you reach the trees, you're soaked with sweat. By the time you've chopped enough wood to carry back, the sweat has frozen inside your clothes. One morning, Jacob comes back from a wood gathering trip shaking so hard he can barely speak. His lips are blue. His fingers won't close. It takes 2 hours by the fire before he stops trembling. Can't keep doing this, he says once he can form words again. Going to kill us faster than the cold. He's right. The trips are too dangerous, too exhausting, burning more energy than the wood is worth. You need another way. That's when you remember the fat. You'd been saving it. Buffalo fat mostly, rendered down from the animals you killed in the fall. A few pounds of elk fat too, maybe 5 pounds total, packed in a leather pouch, tucked in the corner of the cabin where it stayed frozen solid. You'd been thinking of it as emergency food, last resort stuff, the kind of thing you'd eat when there was nothing else left. But fat burns. You know this. Everyone knows this. Drop a piece of bacon into a fire and watch it flare up. The grease catches, flames leap, and for a moment you've got more light and heat than the wood alone provides. So why not burn the fat on purpose? You don't have bacon, but you have strips of rendered buffalo fat, hard as candle wax from the cold. You take one of the shallow stone dishes you use for mixing things, set it near the fire until it warms up, then lay a strip of fat inside. Touch the end with a burning stick. It catches, slowly at first, then faster. The fat melts and burns, producing a weak, flickering light and a thick plume of greasy smoke that rises toward the chimney hole. It works, sort of. The light is terrible, nothing like a proper candle or lamp, more like the last dying ember of a fire, orange and unsteady, barely enough to see your own hands by. But it's something. In the absolute darkness of the buried cabin, even that small glow makes a difference. You can see each other's faces now, can tell when someone is awake or sleeping, can find the water bucket without knocking it over. Small mercies. That's what survival comes down to. A collection of small mercies that add up to another day alive. The smoke is something else entirely. It's thick, greasy, coats everything it touches with a black film that sticks to your skin and clothes and the inside of your lungs. Within a day, the cabin walls are streaked with dark residue. Within a week, you can run your finger along any surface and come away with a smear of black. Your face is smudged with it. Your hands are stained. When you blow your nose, what comes out is grey. And the smell. God, the smell. Burning fat has a particular odour, rich and heavy and slightly rancid, like meat that's starting to turn. Mix that with the wood smoke from the fire and the close, sour smell of 3 unwashed men living in a 10 by 12 space for weeks on end. Add the stench of the beaver pelts and deer hides drying in the corner, that musky animal funk that gets into everything. Layer all of that together in an enclosed cabin with barely any ventilation. The air becomes something you have to push through, thick and choking and barely breathable. Your eyes water constantly. Your throat feels raw. You cough in your sleep, hacking up black phlegm that would alarm you if you had the energy left to be alarmed. Jacob looks at his hands one morning, black with soot. You know what this reminds me of? What? Chimney sweeps, back in St. Louis. Those kids who climb up inside the chimneys to clean them. They always looked like this. Those kids get paid. Those kids also get lung disease and die young. He wipes his hands on his pants, accomplishing nothing. So I guess we have that in common. That's not funny. No, he agrees. It's really not. But you both laugh anyway. What else can you do? Back east, in the cities and towns where normal people live normal lives, they'd call this place unfit for human habitation. They'd open windows, demand fresh air, walk away from the smell and the smoke and the filth. You don't have that option. This is home now, this pit of smoke and grease and unwashed bodies. This is what keeping alive looks like. But it's warm. The fat adds heat as well as light, and warmth is the only currency that matters anymore. You fall into a new routine. Wake up, build up the fire, light the fat lamp, eat whatever meagre ration Jacob has decided you can spare, sit in the dim, smoky, foul-smelling darkness, and wait. Check the chimney, feed the fire, trim the fat lamp when it starts to gutter, wait some more. The days blur together. Monday feels like Thursday, feels like Saturday, feels like nothing at all. The only markers of time are the meals growing smaller each day, and the fat supply shrinking along with everything else. You start rationing the light too. No point burning fat during the hours when you're sleeping anyway, so you extinguish the lamp at night, let the darkness swallow everything, and learn to navigate the tiny cabin by touch and memory. 3 steps from your bed to the fire pit, 2 steps from the fire pit to the water bucket, 4 steps from the water bucket to the door. You could do it blindfolded now. You pretty much are. William handles the darkness worse than you or Jacob. He was never meant for this life. Young, soft, came west looking for adventure and found something else entirely. At night, you can hear him muttering in his sleep. Names, places, fragments of conversations with people 1,000 miles away. Sometimes he cries, quiet, choked sobs that he tries to muffle in his buffalo robe. You pretend not to notice. So does Jacob. There's nothing you can do for him anyway. Nothing any of you can do for each other except survive long enough to see spring. The food situation gets worse. You started the winter with maybe 200 pounds of dried meat between the three of you. Elk and deer and buffalo cut into strips, smoked over slow fires, packed away in rawhide containers. Enough to last until spring if you were careful. You weren't careful enough. By mid-January you're down to 50 pounds, maybe less. Jacob counts the pieces each morning, his lips moving silently as he does the math. 2 pieces each for breakfast, 1 piece each for dinner. Nothing in between except melted snow water and the gnawing emptiness in your belly. The hunger is constant now. Not the sharp, urgent hunger you feel after missing a meal. Something deeper. A hollow ache that lives in your stomach and spreads outward, making your thoughts slow and your muscles weak. You find yourself thinking about food all the time, dreaming about it, waking in the middle of the night with your mouth watering from visions of your mother's cooking, fried chicken, biscuits with gravy, apple pie warm from the oven, foods you haven't tasted in years, foods you may never taste again. You've got some flour left, not much. Maybe 3 cups, carefully hoarded since rendezvous. You mix it with melted snow, just flour and water, and cook it on a flat stone by the fire. Mountain bread, they call it. Tastes like paste. But it fills your stomach for a little while, gives your body something to work on besides itself. The coffee ran out a week ago. That might be the hardest loss of all. Not because you need the caffeine, though you do, but because making coffee was a ritual, a way to mark the morning as different from the night, a small pleasure in a world that stripped away every other pleasure. Now you drink hot water instead. Plain melted snow heated over the fire, sipped slowly to make it last. It warms your insides for a few minutes. That's all it does. But those few minutes matter. The pemmican holds out longer than the jerky. Pemmican is different. Dried meat pounded into a powder, mixed with fat and berries, pressed into cakes that can last for months without spoiling. It's dense, filling. A few ounces can keep a man going for a day if he doesn't push too hard. You're not pushing at all anymore. None of you are. There's nowhere to go and nothing to do except sit and wait and hope. The traps you set in November are buried under 6 feet of snow. The streams where the beaver lived are frozen solid. The game has fled to lower ground, leaving nothing behind but tracks that lead away into whiteness. You tried hunting once, about a week ago, strapped on your snowshoes and fought your way up the valley with your rifle, looking for anything that moved. Spent 4 hours wading through drifts, burning energy you couldn't spare, and came back empty-handed. Didn't see a single animal, not a deer, not a rabbit, not even a bird. The mountains have emptied out. Everything that could leave has left. Everything that stayed is either buried in a cabin like you or dead in a snowdrift like Charles. So you wait, and you ration, and you watch the food supplies shrink day by day, wondering how long 50 pounds will last, wondering what happens when it runs out. You know what happens. Everyone knows. But nobody talks about it. There are horses outside. 4 of them, huddled together in a rough shelter you built in November. They're thin now, eating whatever dried grass you can dig up from under the snow, which isn't much. They're weak and miserable and probably won't survive the winter anyway. A horse has maybe 300 pounds of meat on it. Butchered right, that's enough to feed 3 men for months. You've seen it done before. Trappers who got caught in bad situations, far from help, no other options. They ate their horses and survived, came back to rendezvous the next summer with stories to tell. But a horse is also transport. It's your way out of the mountains when spring comes. Without horses, you're stuck here, trapped in the wilderness with hundreds of pounds of beaver pelts and no way to carry them to market. All that work, all that suffering, for nothing. So you wait, and you hope it doesn't come to that. Jacob brings it up one night. You're sitting around the fat lamp, the three of you, watching the weak flame flicker and dance. The smoke hangs heavy in the air. Outside, the wind is doing its usual howling, testing the cabin, looking for weaknesses. We need to talk about the horses. William's head comes up. His eyes are hollow now, sunk deep in a face that's lost 20 pounds since November. No, I'm not saying we do it yet. I'm saying we need to have a plan. I'm not eating my horse, William's voice cracks. He's all I've got left from home. My father gave him to me when I left for the mountains. I promised I'd bring him back. Your father would rather have you back alive. You don't know that. You don't know anything about my father. The conversation dies there. Nobody has the energy to argue. But the question hangs in the smoky air unanswered. What happens when the food runs out? You lie awake that night, staring at the darkness, listening to the wind. Your stomach is a knot of emptiness. Your body aches from hunger and cold and the sheer exhaustion of staying alive. And somewhere beneath all of that, a thought keeps surfacing no matter how hard you try to push it down. 300 pounds of meat. You hate yourself for thinking it, but you think it anyway. The next morning, one of the horses is dead. You find it when you go out to feed them, lying on its side in the snow, legs stiff, eyes open and frozen. It's William's horse, the one his father gave him. It must have died sometime in the night, too weak and cold to hold on any longer. William doesn't say anything when you tell him. He just stares at you for a long moment, then turns away and faces the wall. Jacob looks at you. You look at Jacob. Neither of you speaks, but you both know what happens next. It takes most of the day to butcher the carcass. The meat is frozen solid already, which makes cutting difficult but also means it won't spoil. You work in shifts, one man hacking at the frozen flesh with a knife, while the others warm their hands by the fire. By evening, you've got maybe 200 pounds of horse meat packed in the snow outside the cabin, enough to last another month, maybe more. William won't eat it, not the first night anyway. He sits in his corner of the cabin, wrapped in his buffalo robe, refusing the strips of roasted horse meat that Jacob offers. His face is empty, somewhere far away. By the second night he eats. He doesn't have a choice. None of you do. The horse meat tastes different from elk or deer or buffalo. Sweeter somehow. Richer. There's a lot of fat on a horse, more than you'd expect, and you render it down and add it to your supply for the lamps. The bones go into a pot of melted snow, boiling for hours, producing a thin broth that warms your belly and gives you something to sip on during the long dark hours. You don't waste anything. You can't afford to. A week later, another horse dies. Same thing, just gives up in the night, lies down in the snow and doesn't get up. You butcher that one too. Add it to the stockpile. Try not to think about what it means that you're down to 2 horses now. 2 horses for 3 men. If spring comes and you have to leave the mountains, someone's walking. But spring is still far away, and you've got bigger problems than transportation. The smoke from the fat lamp is getting thicker. The cabin walls are coated in black. The air tastes like ash and rancid grease. And somewhere outside, in the frozen darkness, you can hear the wolves again. They know about the horses. They can smell the blood from the butchering. They're circling closer now, their howls carrying through the winter night, hungry and patient and waiting for their chance. You've started to recognize individual voices in the pack. The deep bass howl of the big male who seems to be the leader. The higher, yipping calls of the younger ones. The eerie, almost human wail of a female who always starts the chorus. 6 voices, maybe 7. Hard to tell. They blend together into something bigger, something that surrounds the cabin like a living thing. During the day, when you venture outside for wood or to check on the remaining horses, you see their tracks. Circling the cabin, approaching the horse shelter, coming within 20 feet of your door before turning back. Testing, probing, learning your routines. Wolves are smart, smarter than most people give them credit for. They figured out that the men with rifles are dangerous at close range, so they stay back, stay patient, stay hungry. They're waiting for you to make a mistake. You check your rifle, clean it for the 3rd time today. Make sure there's powder in the pan and a ball in the barrel. 8 shots left, maybe 9. Not enough to fight off a pack of wolves if it comes to that, but enough to take a few of them with you. The fire crackles, the fat lamp gutters, the darkness presses in from all sides, and in your belly, beneath the thin warmth of horsemeat broth, the hunger keeps gnawing, always gnawing, a companion you can't shake, a reminder of how close you are to the edge. You think about the men in the other cabins scattered through the valley, 20 of them maybe, give or take, all going through the same thing, the same cold, the same hunger, the same slow war against a winter that refuses to end. Some of them won't make it. You know this. Bridger knows it too, though he doesn't say it out loud. The math is simple. Not enough food, not enough wood, not enough warmth, not enough time until spring. Someone in this valley's gonna die before the snow melts. Maybe several someones. You hope it isn't you. You pray it isn't you. In the quiet moments before sleep, when the fire has burned low and the darkness is absolute, and the only sounds are the wind outside and the wolves singing their endless song. Please, God, not me, not yet. Just let me see one more spring. Outside the wolves keep circling, and the snow keeps falling, and somewhere far to the east, in a world you can barely remember, the sun is probably shining on green fields and warm houses, and people who have never once had to wonder if they would live to see tomorrow. You close your eyes, you pull the buffalo robe up to your chin, you try to remember what grass looks like, and you wait for morning. February arrives without fanfare. No calendar on the wall to mark it, no change in the weather to signal a new month. Just more cold, more snow, more of the same relentless white that has defined your existence since November. The horse meat is running low. You've stretched it as far as it will go. Small portions, thin broth, every scrap of fat rendered for the lamps, every bone boiled until the marrow is gone and the remaining structure crumbles like chalk. But even with all that care, 2 horses only provide so much, and 3 hungry men burn through provisions faster than you'd like. Jacob does the math one morning, counting what's left, dividing by days, his face getting grimmer with each calculation. 2 weeks, he says, maybe less. William doesn't respond. He's been quiet since his horse died, eating when food is put in front of him, sleeping when there's nothing else to do but otherwise just absent. Like part of him left with that animal and hasn't come back. You nod. 2 weeks. Then what? You know the answer. Everyone who spent time in the mountains knows the answer. When the meat runs out, you eat whatever else you can find. And when that runs out, there are still 2 horses outside, thinner now, ribs showing through their winter coats, but alive. You check on them every day, breaking ice from the water trough, digging through the snow to find whatever dried grass might be buried underneath. They nicker weakly when you approach, recognize you, trust you. The thought of killing them makes your stomach turn, but the thought of starving makes it turn worse. You're not there yet. Not quite. There's still the leather. The thing about leather is, it used to be alive. Used to be skin and muscle and fat stretched and dried and treated until it became something useful. Moccasins, belts, pouches, the straps on your pack, the sheath for your knife, all of it was animal once. All of it still contains some of what that animal was made of. Collagen, mostly. The stuff that holds skin together. The human body can break it down, sort of, if you cook it long enough. Boil it until it softens. Chew it until your jaw aches. Swallow it and hope your stomach can figure out what to do with it. It won't keep you alive forever, but it might keep you alive long enough. You've heard stories about this. Every mountain man has. Tales told around campfires at rendezvous, usually with a laugh, about the time so-and-so got stuck in a blizzard and had to eat his boots. The stories always sound funny when you're sitting there with a belly full of buffalo meat and a cup of whiskey in your hand. Real knee-slapper stuff. Can you imagine? Eating your own moccasins? Well, here you are, about to imagine it very clearly. You start with the spare moccasins, the ones you'd been saving for when your current pair wore out. They're good quality, made from elk hide, soft and supple from months of wear. You cut them into strips with your knife, each piece about the size of your finger. It feels wrong somehow, cutting up something useful, something that took skill to make, something that would keep your feet from freezing if you still had enough food to go anywhere. But you don't have enough food, and feet don't matter if you're dead. The pot goes over the fire, melted snow for water. The leather strips dropped in one by one until you've got a stew of shoe parts bubbling away in front of you. It takes hours. The leather softens slowly, grudgingly, like it's fighting against being food. You stir it now and then, watching the water turn murky brown, watching the strips slowly lose their shape and become something that might, possibly, be chewable. The cabin fills with a strange smell, not quite cooking meat, not quite anything else, something in between, something that makes your stomach growl even as your mind recoils. When it's ready, you divide it 3 ways. Each man gets a portion of soggy, brownish leather strips and a cup of the water they cooked in. Leather broth, moccasin soup, the meal of kings, if kings were starving in a cabin in the Rocky Mountains with nothing else to eat. You pick up the first strip and put it in your mouth. The texture is wrong. That's the first thing you notice. Even after hours of boiling, it's still tough, rubbery. Your teeth sink in but can't cut through. You have to gnaw at it, working your jaw like a dog with a bone, grinding and tearing until small pieces break free and slide down your throat. The taste is worse, smoky from the fire that dried it, slightly rancid from the animal fat that treated it, earthy from the dirt it's walked through, and underneath all that, something else, something that tastes like failure, like desperation, like the last stop before the end. Jacob takes a bite of his portion, chews for a solid minute, then laughs. Actually laughs. It's a strange sound in the cabin, rusty from disuse. "What's so funny?" William asks. "I'm eating a shoe." Jacob shakes his head, still chewing. 2 years ago, I was drinking champagne in St. Louis, had a girl on each arm, thought I was the luckiest man alive. Now I'm sitting in a hole in the ground eating footwear. Was the champagne good? It was terrible, but it was better than this. You laugh too. It hurts your cracked lips, but you laugh anyway. Because what else can you do? Cry? You've done enough of that already, in the dark hours when the others are asleep. Might as well laugh while you can. You chew and chew and chew. The The strip in your mouth seems to last forever, refusing to break down, fighting you every step of the way. Your jaw muscles start to ache, your teeth hurt from the pressure. But you keep going, because the alternative is nothing, and nothing leads somewhere you don't want to go. When you finally swallow the last bit, your stomach rebels. Not with nausea exactly, more like confusion. Like your body can't quite figure out what you've sent down there or what it's supposed to do with it. But here's the thing, after an hour or so the hunger eases. Not much, not completely, but enough that you're not thinking about food every single second. Enough that you can function. Enough that you can make it through another day. That's what eating leather is about. Not nutrition, not pleasure, just buying time. Over the following days, you work through everything that's made of hide. The spare moccasins go first, then the worn-out ones, the pair you'd been wearing since October, so thin in the soles that your feet felt every rock and root. Then the belt, then the pouches, then the straps on your pack. You look at your knife sheath, the good one your father gave you when you left Missouri. Beaver hide, carefully stitched, with your initials carved into the leather. A keepsake, a connection to home. You eat that too. William won't eat his belt at first. It was a gift from his sweetheart, a girl named Sarah who promised to wait for him back in Ohio. He's carried it across half a continent, worn it every day, touched it when he needed to remember that somewhere out there someone was thinking of him. "Can't eat this," he says, holding it in his hands, turning it over and over. "She made it for me, used her own hands, stitched it herself." "She'd want you to live," Jacob says, gentle but firm. "You don't know what she'd want. I know she wouldn't want you to starve to death holding onto a piece of leather." William stares at the belt for a long time. Minutes stretch out in the smoky darkness of the cabin. The fire pops and crackles. Outside, the wind moans through the drifts. Finally, he hands it to you. "Cut it up. I can't do it myself." You take the belt. Feel the weight of it. Notice the careful stitching. The love that went into every hole punched, every thread pulled tight. Then you take your knife and start cutting. The leather goes into the pot with everything else. And when it's soft enough to chew, William eats his portion without a word. His face is empty. His eyes are somewhere far away. But he eats. When the leather runs out, you turn to hunting. Real hunting. Even though you know the odds are against you. The game is gone. You've known this for weeks. But gone doesn't always mean completely absent. Sometimes, in a winter this harsh, animals die before they can reach safety. Freeze in their tracks, collapse in the snow, get caught in a storm and never come out. Their bodies are still out there, somewhere, buried under the drifts, frozen solid, waiting for someone desperate enough to find them. You call it hunting, but it's really more like treasure hunting or grave robbing. You're not looking for living animals, you're looking for dead ones. You head out on a clear morning, the first clear morning in weeks. The sun is blinding off the snow, so bright it hurts, and you have to squint just to see where you're going. The temperature is brutal, cold enough that your nose hairs freeze with every breath, cold enough that exposed skin starts to hurt within seconds. But you go anyway, you have to. Snowshoes help. Without them you'd sink to your waist with every step. With them, you stay on top of the crust, moving slowly but steadily across the frozen landscape. The world is empty, white in every direction. No trees, no rocks, no landmarks. Just snow and more snow stretching to the mountains on every side. You look for signs, disturbances in the snow that might indicate something buried underneath. A hump that's the wrong shape, a shadow that doesn't match the terrain. Anything that might lead you to a frozen carcass, It takes 3 hours, but you find one. An elk. A bull, judging by the size, though you can only see part of the shoulder sticking up through the drift. The rest is buried under 4 feet of packed snow. Must have died weeks ago, maybe months. Must have been walking when it happened, because it's still in a standing position, frozen solid in mid-stride. Poor bastard probably got caught in one of the early storms, disoriented in the whiteout, kept walking until his legs gave out and the cold took him. His bad luck is your good fortune. That's the mountains for you. One creature's death is another creature's dinner. You dig. It takes forever. Your hands go numb within minutes, and you have to keep stopping to warm them under your coat. The snow is packed hard, almost like ice, and you're using your knife instead of a shovel because you don't have a shovel. Chip by chip, handful by handful, working your way down to the frozen body beneath. Layer by layer, you uncover the elk. The body's completely frozen, hard as wood. The hide is stiff, and the meat underneath won't cut easily. You have to hack at it, chipping away chunks of frozen flesh like you're carving ice. The meat comes off in jagged pieces, some of it still attached to hide, some of it mixed with frozen blood and hair. Doesn't matter, you'll sort it out later. Right now, you just need to get as much as you can and get home before dark. The work warms you up even as your hands go numb. Sweat beads on your forehead under your fur cap. Your shoulders ache from the hacking motion. But you keep going, because every chunk of frozen meat is another day of life, another meal, another step closer to spring. But it's meat, real meat, not leather, not horse, elk. You load what you can carry onto a makeshift sled you've rigged from branches and rope. Maybe 40 pounds, not much, but better than nothing. Then you start the long trudge back to the cabin, dragging your prize behind you, watching the sun sink toward the mountains, praying you make it home before dark. You do. Barely. The cabin is a shadow against the twilight when you finally spot it. The thin trail of smoke rising from the chimney, the most beautiful thing you've seen in weeks. Inside, you drop the frozen meat by the fire. Jacob and William stare at it like they're looking at gold. Elk, you say. Unnecessary. They can see what it is. Where? Jacob asks. Mile north, maybe 2. Dead a long time. Buried deep. More? Plenty, if we can dig it out. That night you eat elk for the first time in months. The meat is strange, the texture off from having been frozen and thawed, but you don't care. It's food. Real food. Protein and fat and everything your body has been screaming for. You eat until your stomach hurts. Then you eat a little more. And something happens that you didn't expect. You feel good. Actually good. Not just still alive good. Happy. The warmth of the fire. The fullness in your belly. The smell of roasting meat instead of burning leather. Jacob is humming something under his breath. An old song from back east. William is actually smiling. The first real smile you've seen on his face since his horse died. You know what I miss? William says, apropos of nothing. Everything, Jacob answers. Besides everything. Specifically. Right now. You think about it. Hot baths. A real bed. My mother's voice. Apples, Jacob says. Fresh apples right off the tree. That crunch when you bite into one. William nods slowly. I was going to say music. Someone playing a fiddle. Dancing. Remember dancing. You remember. Seems like 1,000 years ago. A different person's life. We'll dance again, you say. You're not sure you believe it, but you say it anyway. Come summer at rendezvous. We'll find a fiddle player and we'll dance until our legs give out. Promise? Promise. It's a small thing. A stupid thing. But it matters. These moments matter. The human moments. Between the suffering. The reminder that you're not just surviving, you're living. Poorly, desperately, but living. The next day, all three of you go out. You find the elk carcass again, dig out the rest of it, drag it back to camp. 200 pounds maybe. Enough to last a couple of weeks if you're careful. And you're very careful. But the elk is just the beginning. Now that you know what to look for, you start finding more. A deer, half buried in a drift near the tree line, its legs broken from a fall on the ice. 2 rabbits, frozen solid, their bodies preserved perfectly by the cold, probably caught by a hawk or fox and then abandoned when the snow got too deep. A grouse, or what's left of one, picked over by something before the snow covered it. You dig them all out, eat them all, don't care how long they've been dead, don't care what might have been chewing on them before you found them. Food is food, calories are calories, and calories are the only thing keeping you alive. The other trappers start doing the same thing. Word spreads through the valley, cabin to cabin, that there's game to be found if you're willing to dig for it. You see tracks in the snow now, human tracks, leading out from the buried mounds that mark each camp. Men hunting for the dead. Some of them find what they're looking for, others don't. You hear later, through the whisper network that connects the camps, that a man named Foster walked out one morning and never came back. 3 days later, his partners found his body a mile from the cabin, face down in a drift. He'd been digging when the snow collapsed on him, or maybe he just got too tired to go on. Either way, he's dead now. Another name to add to the list. You don't talk about Foster. You don't talk about any of them. There's no point. The dead are dead, and the living are busy staying alive. That's all the philosophy you have room for in your head. This is what survival looks like. Digging through snow for frozen corpses, chewing on leather until your jaw can barely move, eating things that would make your mother weep if she knew, watching friends disappear and pretending it doesn't matter, because if you let it matter, if you let yourself feel the weight of all this death and desperation, you'll crack, you'll give up, you'll lie down in the snow like Foster and let the cold take you. You're not ready for that. Not yet. Some nights, when the fire is low and the darkness presses in, and the only sound is the wind outside, you think about what you've become. The young man who left Missouri with dreams of adventure and fortune, the trapper who was going to make his mark on the wilderness and return home rich. Where did that person go? He's still here, you suppose, buried under layers of grime and desperation and frozen elk meat, buried under the things he's done to stay alive, but still here, still fighting. That has to count for something, but you're still here, still breathing, still fighting, and somewhere far to the east spring is getting closer. You can feel it almost, not in the temperature, which is still brutal, not in the snow, which is still relentless, but in something else, some shift in the quality of the light maybe, some subtle lengthening of the days, some whisper of hope that manages to seep into the buried cabin despite everything. One day at a time, one meal at a time, one frozen carcass at a time. You're going to make it. You have to believe that, because the alternative is giving up, and giving up means dying, and you're not ready to die. Not yet. Not after everything you've survived. Not when spring is somewhere out there, waiting, ready to melt the snow and free you from this frozen prison. So you keep hunting, keep digging, keep chewing, and you wait for the thaw. The wolves stop circling. For weeks they've been out there, watching, waiting, learning your routines. You'd almost gotten used to them, the way you get used to any constant threat. Background noise, something to be aware of but not consumed by. That changes on a night in late February. You're asleep when it happens, deep asleep, the kind of exhausted unconsciousness that comes from days of digging through snow for frozen meat. The fire has burned low, the fat lamp is guttering, the cabin is dark and quiet and cold. Then the screaming starts. Not human screaming, horse screaming. A sound you've never heard before and hope to never hear again. High and terrified and absolutely primal, the sound of an animal that knows it's dying. You're on your feet before you're fully awake, rifle in hand, heart pounding. Jacob is up too, grabbing for his own weapon. William is slower, confused, still tangled in his buffalo robe. "The horses," Jacob says. One word. That's all it takes. You throw open the cabin door and step into the frozen night. The moon is up, nearly full, casting everything in silver and shadow. The horse shelter is maybe 50 feet from the cabin, a rough lean-to you built against a rock outcropping, and in front of it, moving like liquid darkness, are the wolves. 6 of them, maybe 7. Hard to count when they're in motion. They've surrounded the shelter, cutting off any escape, working together with a coordination that speaks to months of practice. The 2 remaining horses are pressed against the back wall, eyes rolling white, hooves stamping, that horrible screaming still coming from their throats. You've seen wolves hunt before, from a distance, safe on horseback, watching them take down an elk in the valley below. It seemed almost beautiful then, the way they worked together, the efficiency of it. Now, watching them go after your horses, there's nothing beautiful about it. Just terror and teeth and blood. One wolf darts in. Fast. Too fast to follow. Its jaws close on a horse's back leg and it pulls, dragging the animal off balance. The horse kicks, connects with something, sends the wolf tumbling. But another wolf is already there, coming from the other side, going for the throat. A third wolf circles around back, looking for an opening. They're not fighting fair, they never do. They fight to win. You raise your rifle, aim, fire. The shot cracks across the valley like thunder. One of the wolves drops, tumbles, lies still. The others scatter, melting back into the darkness so fast it's like they were never there. 1 second, the night is full of grey shapes and gleaming eyes. The next, nothing. Just the moonlight and the snow and the sound of a horse dying. But the damage is done. The horse that was attacked is down, lying on its side in the snow, blood pumping from the wound in its throat, legs still kicking weakly. The other horse is pressed against the shelter wall, shaking, unhurt but terrified. You run to the downed animal. Jacob is beside you, but there's nothing to be done. The wolf got the artery. Blood is soaking into the snow, black in the moonlight, spreading in a pool that steams in the cold air. The horse's eyes find yours, hold them for a moment, then go dull, gone, just like that. One more piece of your survival stripped away. You stand there in the bloody snow, rifle in your hands, scanning the tree line. The wolves are out there. You can feel them watching, can almost see their eyes, yellow and patient, gleaming from the shadows. 7 shots left now, and there are more wolves than that. Jacob speaks first. We need to bring the other horse inside. Inside the cabin? Where else? Leave it out here, they'll be back, tonight, tomorrow. They know how to do this now. They've learned. He's right. Wolves are smart. They learn from every encounter, every success, every failure. They've been studying you for months, watching your patterns, testing your defenses, and tonight they found a weakness. They'll exploit it again. You would, in their place. So you do something that would have seemed insane back in September. You lead the surviving horse through the cabin door, squeezing its bulk through a frame that was never meant for animals, and you tie it in the corner where William used to sleep. William doesn't argue. He just moves his bedroll to a different spot and tries not to look at the terrified animal sharing his living space. The cabin smells like horse now. Manure and sweat and fear, layered on top of the smoke and grease and human stink that was already there. The horse shifts constantly, nervous, its hooves scraping against the dirt floor. When it relieves itself, which is often, you shovel the mess outside and hope the wolves don't take the smell as an invitation. "This is ridiculous," Jacob says, watching you shovel. "We're living with a horse." "Would you rather be living without a horse?" "I'd rather be living in St. Louis with a pretty girl and a hot meal." "Wouldn't we all?" The horse snorts, as if it understands and is offended. William reaches out and strokes its nose, the first time he's touched another living thing in weeks. The horse calms a little. William calms a little too. "She needs a name," William says quietly. "If she's going to live with us, she needs a name." You hadn't thought about it. The horses were always just horses, tools, transport. But William's right. Somehow, giving her a name feels important. "Hope," Jacob says. "Call her Hope. God knows we could use some." It's corny, it's sentimental, but it fits. Hope shifts in her corner, nibbles at the moss chinking between the logs, and settles into her new home. This is what your life has become. Sleeping with livestock, shoveling horse dung, counting your bullets and wondering if you have enough to survive. But also this: small kindnesses, unexpected connections, moments of warmth in the cold. The wolves don't give up. They come back the next night, and the night after that. You can hear them outside the cabin walls sniffing at the cracks, scratching at the snow you've piled for insulation. One night you wake to the sound of digging. They're trying to tunnel in. You grab a burning stick from the fire and fling open the door. 3 wolves are right there, maybe 10 feet away, caught in the act. For a frozen moment you stare at each other. Their eyes reflect the firelight. Their breath steams in the cold. Then they're gone, vanished into the darkness like smoke. You don't sleep well after that. Word spreads through the valley. Other camps are having the same problems. A man named Henderson lost both his horses in a single night. Walked outside at dawn to find nothing but bones and blood in the snow. The wolves had eaten everything. Meat, organs, even part of the hide. Left nothing but the skull and a few scattered bones cracked open for the marrow. Another trapper, a Frenchman named Beaumont, who'd been working the streams near the head of the valley, lost his dog. A big mongrel, part mastiff, that had been his companion for 6 years. Beaumont heard the fight but couldn't get outside in time. Found the dog's body 50 yards from his cabin, torn open, steam still rising from the wounds. He buried what was left and didn't speak for 3 days. The worst story comes from a cabin half a mile upstream. A trapper named Collins, working alone because his partners had died of the smoke sickness back in December. One morning, he didn't answer when the neighbouring camp came to check on him. The door was open, the fire was cold, and Collins was gone. His partners went looking for him and found tracks. Human tracks and wolf tracks mixed together, leading off into the forest. The snow told a story, if you knew how to read it. Collins had walked out of his cabin for some reason. Maybe heard something. Maybe needed to relieve himself. Whatever the reason, he'd gotten maybe 200 yards from his door when the wolves found him. The tracks showed the chase. Collins running, stumbling in the deep snow. The wolves spreading out, flanking him, cutting off escape. Then a place where everything was churned up. Snow kicked in all directions, stained pink and then red and then darker. They followed as far as they could. They found his rifle first, then his hat, then a single moccasin, torn and bloody. The wolves had dragged him into the thick timber, and the men following weren't stupid enough to go in after them. Not with darkness coming on, not with the wolves probably watching from the shadows, waiting to add more meat to their larder. They never found Collins, not his body, not his bones. Nothing but those few scraps of clothing and the story written in the snow. You hear this story sitting around Bridger's fire, one of the rare occasions when the weather breaks enough for the scattered camps to communicate. Bridger tells it flat. No emotion, just facts. But his eyes are hard and his hand rests on his rifle the whole time he's talking. They're not afraid of us anymore, he says. The hunger's burned the fear right out of them. They see us as prey now, same as elk, same as deer, just meat that walks on two legs. Nobody argues with him. You've all seen it, felt it. That shift in the relationship between man and wolf. For years the wolves stayed away, avoided your camps, feared your rifles. But starvation changes things. Starvation makes predators bold and prey vulnerable. And right now, huddled in your buried cabins, weak from hunger, low on ammunition, you're the vulnerable ones. You start doing things differently. Never go outside alone. Always carry a rifle, loaded, ready. When you dig for frozen game, one man works while the others stand guard, scanning the tree line, watching for movement. You communicate by gunshot, a system Bridger sets up. 1 shot means need help. 2 shots means wolves spotted. 3 shots means someone's dead. You hear 3 shots more often than you'd like. The wolves get bolder. They stop running when you come outside. Instead, they stand their ground, watching you with those yellow eyes, calculating, figuring out if you're weak enough to take. You stare back, rifle raised, wondering the same thing about them. One afternoon, you're returning from a scavenging trip when you see them. A whole pack, maybe a dozen animals spread out in a line across the snow between you and the cabin. Blocking your path, not attacking, just waiting. Your heart hammers against your ribs. There are 3 of you, 12 of them. The math isn't good. You've got frozen rabbit in your pack, maybe 15 pounds of meat, hard won from hours of digging through the drifts. The wolves can smell it, have probably been tracking you for miles, following the scent, waiting for the right moment. This is the right moment. For them, anyway. Jacob raises his rifle slowly. "Nobody run," he says, voice low. "You run, you die. We walk, slow, steady, eyes front." "What if they charge?" William whispers. His face is white, his hands are shaking. "Then we shoot the first 3 and pray the rest lose their nerve. But they won't charge. Not yet. They're testing us, seeing what we're made of." You start walking, 1 foot in front of the other, snow crunching under your moccasins, eyes locked on the wolves ahead. They watch you come. Some of them sit down, relaxed, like they have all the time in the world. One of them yawns, showing teeth as long as your fingers. 20 feet, 15, 10. The big male, the one you've seen before, stands directly in your path. His fur is matted and dirty. His ribs show through his coat. He's starving, same as you, same as everything else in these mountains. There's a scar on his muzzle, an old wound that healed badly. Makes him look even meaner than the rest. You stop. He doesn't move. The world narrows down to this moment, this handful of feet between you and the wolf. You can see the ice crystals in his fur, can see the way his muscles bunch under his skin ready to spring, can see the hunger in his eyes, the calculation, the ancient predator math being worked out in a brain that's been doing this for 10,000 generations. You're not the first human he's faced. You can tell. There's no fear in his posture, no hesitation. He knows what you are, knows what that rifle can do, and he's weighing it. The risk versus the reward. The meat on your bones versus the chance of a bullet in his chest. For a long moment, nothing happens. You can hear your own breathing, can hear Jacob's, can hear William muttering something under his breath that might be a prayer, can hear the wind moving through the valley and the distant crack of a tree branch breaking under the weight of snow. Then the wolf steps aside. Just one step, opening a gap in the line. The others follow his lead, parting like water, creating a corridor just wide enough for you to pass. You walk through, slow, steady, eyes front, not looking at the wolves on either side, close enough to touch, close enough to feel their breath on your hands, and then you're past them, and then you're at the cabin, and then you're inside, door barred, hearts pounding, hands shaking so bad you can barely hold your rifle. What the hell was that? William's voice is high, cracking with fear. Why didn't they attack? Jacob shakes his head. Don't know. Maybe they weren't hungry enough. Maybe they wanted to see what we'd do. Maybe they were just playing with us. You think about the big male, the way he looked at you, the intelligence in those yellow eyes. He was deciding, you say, weighing the odds, figuring out if it was worth the risk. And he decided not today, but tomorrow might be different. That night, you clean your rifle for the 20th time, check your powder, count your bullets again, 6 left. Maybe enough for 6 wolves if your aim is true, not enough for 12. The horse shifts in its corner, nervous, picking up on your fear. Outside, the wind moans through the drifts, and somewhere in the darkness the wolves are planning their next move. You used to think of yourself as a hunter, top of the food chain, someone who took what he needed from the wilderness and answered to no one. That's what the stories back east say about mountain men anyway. Fearless, invincible, masters of the wild. The wolves have a different opinion. Out here, watching them circle, counting your bullets, you're not a master of anything. You're just another animal trying to make it through the night. The wolves know it. The cold knows it. The mountains definitely know it. Funny thing is, that's almost a relief. You don't have to pretend anymore. Don't have to live up to some legend. You just have to survive. One day at a time, one meal at a time, one close call at a time. Simple, terrifying, but simple. You curl up in your buffalo robe, rifle within arm's reach, and you listen to the night, the wind doing its usual howling, hope shifting in her corner, the creak of frozen logs, and underneath it all, so faint you might be imagining it, the pad of paws on snow. They're out there, planning their next move, but so are you. Tomorrow might go badly, tomorrow might go fine. You'll find out when you get there. For now, you close your eyes, you let your body rest, you listen to hope breathing in the darkness, slow and steady, almost peaceful. And somewhere outside, a wolf starts to howl, then another, then a whole chorus of them, filling the night with their song. You don't flinch, you're used to it by now. You just pull the buffalo robe a little tighter and wait for morning. March comes in like a monster. You'd thought the storms were bad before. You were wrong. The blizzard that hits in the first week of March is something else entirely, something biblical. Wind that screams down from the peaks at 60, 70 miles an hour. Snow falling so thick you can't see your hand in front of your face. Temperatures dropping to places that shouldn't exist outside of nightmares. The cabin groans under the assault. You can hear the logs shifting, the roof creaking, the packed snow insulation being stripped away layer by layer. At one point, a gust hits so hard the door bows inward, and for a terrifying moment you think the whole structure is going to collapse. It doesn't. The cabin holds. But you spend 3 days huddled inside, not daring to open the door, burning through your firewood faster than you'd like, waiting for the storm to pass. When it finally does, you dig out to find a transformed world. The snow has drifted in places to 15 feet or more. The horse shelter is completely buried. The paths you'd carved between cabins are gone, erased, filled in like they never existed. The valley looks like the surface of the moon, white and empty and utterly alien. Bridger calls a meeting 2 days later, once enough men have dug out to make travel possible. The news isn't good. 2 cabins collapsed under the weight of the new snow. 1 man dead, crushed in his sleep. 3 others injured, 1 badly enough that he probably won't make it. And the food situation has gone from desperate to critical. The frozen game you'd been scavenging is now buried under an additional 6 feet of snow. Finding it would require digging for hours, maybe days, with no guarantee of success. The few carcasses you'd already located and marked are gone, swallowed by the drifts, their positions impossible to determine. You need fresh meat, real game, animals that's still alive that can be tracked and killed and eaten. The problem is those animals are down in the lower valleys, miles away, through snow that would swallow a man to his neck. Bridger asks for volunteers, men willing to make the trek down to lower ground, find game and bring it back. It's a suicide mission, and everyone knows it. But the alternative is starving where you sit. You volunteer. So does Jacob. William stays behind, too weak from the past weeks to make the journey. His face when you tell him is a mixture of relief and shame. "I'll be here when you get back," he says. You don't tell him that you might not be coming back. He knows. There are 6 of you in the hunting party. You, Jacob, and 4 others. Bridger stays behind to manage the camp. He clasps your hand before you leave, looks you in the eye, says nothing. There's nothing to say. You set out at dawn. Snowshoes strapped on, rifles loaded, packs stuffed with what little food you have left. The plan is simple. Head down the valley, find game, kill as much as you can, and drag it back. 3 days, maybe 4. If you're not back in a week, don't expect you at all. The first day goes well enough. The snow is deep but manageable. You make decent time, pushing through the drifts, following the frozen river that marks the valley floor. By evening you've covered maybe 8 miles. You find a sheltered spot in a stand of pines and make camp, building a fire, huddling together for warmth. The second day starts badly. The sky is wrong, heavy and grey and moving fast. The wind picks up around midday, and by early afternoon the snow starts falling again. Not the gentle flurries you've grown accustomed to. Real snow. Blizzard snow. The kind that kills. "We need to turn back," one of the men says. A trapper named Hawkins, older than the rest of you, veteran of a dozen hard winters. His face is tight with fear. Jacob shakes his head. "We turn back now. We've wasted 2 days for nothing. Camp's got no food. People are going to die either way. People are going to die if we get caught out here. So we don't get caught. We find shelter, wait it out, then keep going." The argument goes around and around. Time slips away. The snow falls harder, and then suddenly it's too late to argue anymore because the storm is on you, fully on you, and you can't see 10 feet in any direction. You've never experienced anything like it. The wind is a physical force, pushing you off balance, tearing at your clothes, driving ice crystals into every exposed inch of skin. The cold is beyond cold. It's pain. It's fire. It's the feeling of your body being stripped away piece by piece. "Stay together," someone shouts. The voice is barely audible over the howling wind. "Hold on to each other. Don't let go." You grab Jacob's coat. Someone grabs yours. The 6 of you form a chain, stumbling through the whiteout, searching desperately for shelter. Trees, rocks, anything that might break the wind. You find nothing. The valley floor is open and exposed. No shelter, no protection. Just snow and wind and the growing certainty that you're going to die out here. "Snow cave," Jacob yells, his mouth inches from your ear. "We have to dig." A snow cave. You know what it is. A hole burrowed into a drift, big enough for a man to crawl inside, the snow itself providing insulation against the cold. The Inuit use them. Trappers who get caught in storms use them. It's a last resort, a gamble. But the alternative is freezing to death in the open. You start digging. The snow is packed hard, crusted over by the wind. Your hands go numb within minutes, but you keep going, scooping out handfuls, burrowing into the drift like an animal. Jacob works beside you. The others are somewhere nearby. You can hear them digging too, but you can't see them in the whiteout. Just voices, faint and muffled, swallowed by the storm. Your body wants to stop. Every part of you is screaming to give up, to lie down, to let the snow cover you like a blanket. But you keep digging because stopping means dying, and you're not ready to die. Not here, not like this. The hole grows, 2 feet deep, 3 feet, 4. You carve out a chamber at the end, big enough for 2 men to curl up inside using your knife to shape the walls, packing the loose snow into solid surfaces. The Inuit build these things in an hour, with practiced hands and generations of knowledge. You're doing it blind, working from half-remembered stories and pure desperation. The snow walls block the wind. The temperature inside is warmer. Not warm, but warmer. Survivable. Maybe 10 degrees, maybe 20. Enough that your blood can keep moving. Enough that your heart can keep beating. You and Jacob crawl in. Drag your packs in after you. Block the entrance with more snow, leaving just a small hole for ventilation. The old trappers say you need that hole. Seal it too tight and you'll suffocate. The snow traps air, but it doesn't make new air. You need fresh breath coming in, or you'll run out and die in your sleep without ever knowing what happened. Like those men in the buried cabin. The ones who went to bed and never woke up. And then you wait. The storm rages outside. You can hear it, muffled now by the snow walls, the howling wind, the hiss of driven ice, the world trying to kill you, held at bay by a few feet of packed white. Inside the snow cave, the darkness is absolute. No fire, no lamp, nothing but the sound of breathing and the awful penetrating cold. Need to get warm, Jacob says. His voice is strange, slurred. Fire, need a fire. You fumble in your pack. Flint and steel, tinder, some dried grass you'd stuffed in there days ago. Your hands are shaking so badly you can barely grip the flint. You strike it against the steel. Nothing. The spark won't catch. You try again and again. Your fingers are thick, clumsy, refusing to obey. The cold has gotten into your bones, into your muscles, turning them to wood. Can't, you manage. The word comes out slurred. Your lips are numb. Your tongue feels thick and stupid in your mouth. Hands won't work. Jacob tries to take the flint from you. His hands are worse than yours, stiff and white and useless. He drops it in the snow, searches for it with dead fingers, can't find it. You're dying. Both of you. You can feel it happening. The cold is winning, shutting your body down system by system. Your thoughts are getting slow, fuzzy. Part of you wants to just lie down and sleep. Sleep sounds so good right now. So warm and peaceful and easy. That's the cold talking. That's death, whispering in your ear. Lie down, rest, let go. You don't let go. You find the flint. God knows how. Some instinct deeper than thought, deeper than the cold. You pick it up with fingers that can't feel anything. Position it over the tinder with hands that might as well belong to someone else. And you strike. Again, and again, and again. The sparks fly. Most of them die in the air, swallowed by the cold before they can reach the tinder. A few land, glow for a second, then go dark. The dried grass is too cold, too damp from your own frozen breath. It won't catch. It won't catch. You're going to die in this hole because you can't make a fire, the most basic human skill, the thing that separates men from animals. No, not like this. Not without a fight. You strip off your mittens. Your hands are white, waxy, the colour of dead fish. You don't care. You cup them around your mouth and breathe on them, forcing warm air over the frozen skin. The pain is instant and terrible, like plunging them into boiling water. Frostbite reversing, blood forcing its way back into collapsed vessels. But the pain means they're still alive. The pain means they might work. You try again, strike the flint. A spark lands in the tinder, glows, starts to fade. You blow on it, gently, so gently, like coaxing a newborn bird to life. The ember grows, brightens, catches the edge of a dried blade of grass. On the 20th try, maybe the 30th, a spark catches. The dried grass smoulders. You blow on it gently, coaxing it, praying it won't die. A tiny flame appears, the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Orange and yellow and alive, dancing in the darkness of the snow cave like a promise. You feed it, carefully, a blade of grass at a time. The flame grows. You add more fuel, small twigs from your pack, pieces of cloth torn from your spare shirt, the wrapping from your extra powder horn. Anything that will burn. The fire takes hold, small and smoky and barely there, but alive, burning, giving off heat. You and Jacob huddle around it, hands extended toward the flames, gasping as feeling starts to return to your frozen fingers. The pain is incredible, like hot needles being driven into your skin. But pain means life. Pain means the frostbite hasn't killed the tissue yet. You sit there in the snow cave, watching the tiny fire, listening to the storm outside. Hours pass. You drift in and out of consciousness. The fire burns low, then lower. You feed it with whatever you can find. Your moccasin laces, the leather ties on your pack, the wooden handle of a tool you don't really need. At some point, Jacob starts laughing. Not a crazy laugh exactly, but not entirely sane either. What? You ask. Your voice sounds like gravel. I just realised something. If we die in here, no one will ever find us. We'll be the world's best preserved corpses. Archaeologists will dig us up in 1,000 years and wonder what the hell we were doing. Hopefully they'll figure out we were trying not to die. Maybe. Or maybe they'll think this was some kind of religious ritual. 2 idiots frozen in a snow cave. Must have been sacrifices to the snow gods. The snow gods can go to hell. Pretty sure this is hell. Just colder than advertised. You laugh. It hurts your cracked lips and frozen cheeks, but you laugh. Because you're still alive. Because Jacob's still alive. Because against all odds, the tiny fire is still burning. Somewhere in the darkness, Jacob speaks again. His voice is weak now, barely a whisper. Thought we were dead. We might still be. Storm's not over. But we're not dead yet. No, not yet. You sit in silence for a while. The fire crackles, the wind howls, the snow walls creak and settle around you. You know what keeps going through my head, Jacob says. What? A hot bath. Remember those? Back in the settlements? Tin tub in front of the fire. Hot water up to your neck. Steam rising. Remember what that felt like? You remember. It seems like another lifetime. Another world. Yeah, you say. I remember. First thing I'm doing when we get back to civilization. Finding the biggest tub I can. Filling it with the hottest water I can stand. And sitting in it until I forget what cold feels like. You laugh. It comes out as a croak, painful but real. That's a fine plan. Finest plan I ever had. The storm lasts through the night. By dawn the wind has died and the snow has stopped. You dig out of the cave and find a changed landscape. Drifts piled high around you. Grey sky overhead and silence. The absolute ringing silence that comes after a blizzard. The others are scattered across the valley. 2 more snow caves, dug hastily like yours. You find them one by one, Hawkins and another man named Peters. 2 more trappers who'd found shelter behind a rock outcropping. 6 went out. 6 survived the night. It feels like a miracle. It probably is. But the hunting party is done. Everyone knows it without saying. The storm has pushed you back miles, has burned through what little food you had left, has sapped your strength and nearly killed half of you. You turn around, start the long trek back to camp, empty-handed, defeated. Nobody talks much during the journey back. There's nothing to say. You all know what this means. The camp is running out of food. The game is gone. The storm has made travel nearly impossible, and the hunting party that was supposed to save everyone has come back with nothing but frostbitten fingers and stories of near death. The math is getting ugly. Too many mouths, not enough food. Something has to give. It takes 2 days to reach the cabins, 2 days of struggling through fresh snow, of rationing the last scraps of food, of sleeping in hastily dug holes and praying for no more storms. Your feet are swollen and painful from the frostbite. Jacob's fingers have turned black at the tips, 2 of them on his left hand. He'll lose them come spring if he lives that long. Hawkins has a cough that sounds like something dying in his chest. You're all falling apart, piece by piece, day by day. When you finally see the smoke rising from the buried mounds that mark the camp, you almost cry with relief. Home. Such a strange word to use for a hole in the ground filled with smoke and horse dung and starving men. But it's home, the only one you have. William meets you at the cabin door. His face falls when he sees your empty packs. He's gotten thinner while you were gone, cheekbones sharp under papery skin, eyes sunk deep in their sockets. He looks like a skeleton wearing a man's clothes. No game. Jacob shakes his head. William doesn't say anything, just steps aside to let you in. The cabin is warm. The fire is burning. After 2 days in the wilderness, it feels like paradise. The smoky air, the stink of the horse in the corner, the dim light of the fat lamp, all of it. Beautiful. Perfect. Home. You collapse onto your bed of pine boughs. The needles poke into your back, familiar and somehow comforting. Close your eyes, and you sleep. Real sleep. Deep sleep. The sleep of men who almost died and somehow didn't. Somewhere in the darkness you dream of green fields, warm sun, the smell of fresh bread baking, your mother's voice, calling you in for dinner. Simple things, forgotten things, things that used to be ordinary and have now become impossible. Tomorrow the hunger will return. Tomorrow you'll have to figure out what comes next. Tomorrow the problems will still be there, piled up like the snow outside waiting to crush you. But that's tomorrow. Tonight you're alive, you're warm, you're home, and right now, that's enough. The days stretch into something that doesn't feel like time anymore. You stop counting. What's the point? One day blurs into the next, each one identical to the last. Wake up, feed the fire, eat whatever scraps are available, sit in the smoky darkness, sleep, repeat. The rhythm becomes automatic, mechanical, like the ticking of a clock that's winding down. Mid-March, maybe. You've lost track. The calendar you scratched into the cabin wall back in November has become meaningless, the marks blurring together, the days piling up into a number that doesn't matter. The food situation has stabilized, if you can call it that. Stabilized at nearly nothing. A handful of dried meat per day, stretched from the remains of the scavenged game. Some pemmican that Bridger distributed from the company stores. Enough to keep you alive. Not enough to feel alive. Your body has started eating itself. You can feel it happening. The muscles in your arms and legs, once strong from years of hauling traps and fighting rivers, have shrunk to rope and sinew. Your ribs show through your skin. Your face, when you catch your reflection in the water bucket, looks like a stranger's face. Hollow cheeks, sunken eyes, the face of a man who's dying by inches. Jacob looks worse. The frostbite on his fingers has spread. The black tips have started to crack and weep, oozing fluid that smells like something rotting. He keeps them wrapped in cloth, doesn't talk about them, but you can see the pain in his eyes every time he moves his hands. William has gone somewhere else entirely. He's still there, physically, sitting in his corner of the cabin, wrapped in his buffalo robe. But his mind has departed for other places. He talks to people who aren't there. His mother, his sweetheart Sarah, the brother he mentioned once, the one who died of fever. Long conversations, one-sided, his voice a low murmur in the darkness. You don't interrupt. You've learned that it's better to let him go wherever he's going. The conversations seem to bring him comfort, and comfort is in short supply. The horse died 3 days ago, the last one. Hope, you'd named her, and now she's gone. You'd known it was coming. The animal had been failing for weeks, refusing to eat, standing motionless in its corner with its head hanging low. When you found her down one morning, legs folded beneath her, breath coming in shallow gasps, you felt something close to relief. You butchered her that day, added the meat to your dwindling stores. The cabin smells different now without Hope, emptier somehow. The space where she stood seems to echo. William took it hard, harder than you expected. He'd been the one who named her after all, the one who stroked her nose when she was scared. Now he sits in his corner, not talking to his imaginary friends anymore, just staring at the empty space. She was a good horse, you say. It sounds stupid even as you say it. William doesn't respond. Jacob tries a different approach. She kept us alive, kept us company. That's more than most horses do. Nothing. And now she's keeping us alive a different way, Jacob continues. She'd want that, if horses want things. William finally looks up. His eyes are red but dry. Do you think horses go to heaven? It's such a strange question. Such a young question. You'd almost forgotten that William is barely 20. Just a kid, really. A kid who came west looking for adventure and found something else entirely. I think, you say slowly, that if there's a heaven, it probably has horses. Green fields to run in, all the oats they can eat, no winters. William nods. Seems satisfied by that. The next morning he starts talking to Sarah again, his imaginary sweetheart. You're glad. Silence is worse. 3 men in a buried cabin. No horses, no way out. Nothing to do but wait for a spring that feels like it will never come. So you find ways to fill the time. Jacob teaches you a card game he learned in New Orleans, played with a deck so worn the faces are barely visible. You play for hours, bet in imaginary fortunes, call in each other's bluffs. The rules don't really matter. The distraction does. William starts drawing. You didn't know he could draw, but he scratches pictures into the cabin wall with a charred stick, images from memory. His mother's house, Sarah's face, Hope running through a field of flowers. The drawings aren't very good, but he works on them for hours, adding details, erasing and starting over. It keeps him anchored to something. You tell stories, all the stories you can remember, fairy tales your mother told you as a child, bawdy jokes you heard at rendezvous, the plot of a novel you read once 3 years ago remembered in fragments. Anything to fill the silence, anything to remember that you're human beings, not just animals huddling in a hole. The psychological weight of it is still there, but you've learned to carry it. You've heard stories about men who go crazy in situations like this. Cabin fever, they call it. The walls start closing in. The silence becomes unbearable. Men start seeing things, hearing things, believing things that aren't real. Some of them walk out into the snow and never come back. Others turn violent, attacking their partners over nothing, driven mad by the confinement. You've seen it happen. Back in your second winter, a trapper named Jennings lost his mind in a cabin not unlike this one. Started convinced that his partners were stealing his food, hiding it, eating more than their share while he slept. He accused them. They denied it. He accused them again. The argument escalated over 3 days until Jennings grabbed his rifle and shot one of them dead. The other partner killed Jennings with a hatchet, then sat in the cabin with 2 corpses until spring, slowly going mad himself. By the time a search party found him, he couldn't speak, couldn't remember his own name, just sat there rocking, staring at nothing, making sounds that weren't words. That story's been in your head a lot lately, playing on repeat in the dark hours. You look at Jacob sometimes and wonder what he's thinking. Wonder if he's looking at you the same way. Wonder if the 3 of you are one bad day away from becoming another story that trappers tell around campfires. You feel it creeping up on you, the edges of your sanity fraying like old rope. Some days you catch yourself staring at the wall for hours, not thinking, not moving, just existing in a grey fog that swallows everything. Other days you feel a rage building inside you, hot and irrational, wanting to scream at Jacob or William or the fire or the snow or God himself. You don't scream, you push it down, you breathe, you focus on small things, the crackle of the fire, the texture of your buffalo robe, the slow in and out of air through your lungs. You anchor yourself to the present moment because the past is too painful and the future is too uncertain. Jacob has his own way of coping. He talks, not to you or William necessarily, but out loud, running commentary on whatever he's doing. Now I'm adding wood to the fire. Now I'm checking my powder. Now I'm mending this hole in my coat. Like he's narrating his own life to an invisible audience. You used to find it annoying. Now you understand. The sound of a human voice, even your own, is a lifeline. A reminder that you exist, that you're still here. William's conversations with absent people have become more frequent, more detailed. You've learned things about his life you never knew before. His father is a blacksmith in Ohio. His mother died when he was 7. Sarah, his sweetheart, has red hair and a laugh like bells. He promised to marry her when he got back from the mountains. Listening to him talk about her is heartbreaking. The hope in his voice, the certainty that he'll see her again, hold her again, build a life with her. You want to believe it's true. You want to believe he'll make it home. But looking at him now, at the bones showing through his skin and the distant look in his eyes, you're not sure. This is how you survive, not with grand gestures or heroic acts, with tiny choices made over and over to keep going when everything in you wants to stop. Bridger comes by one afternoon. He's been making rounds of the cabins, checking on survivors, sharing what little news there is. His beard is wild, his eyes red-rimmed, his clothes hanging loose on a frame that's lost 30 pounds since September. How are you boys holding up? You shrug. What is there to say? He sits down by the fire, accepts a cup of hot water, wraps his hands around it like it's the most precious thing in the world. Lost Harrison last night, he says. Just went to sleep and didn't wake up. Harrison, a trapper from Kentucky, maybe 40 years old. You'd shared a jug of whiskey with him at Rendezvous last summer. Talked about the old days when the beaver were thick and the money was good. He'd seemed indestructible then. Mountain men always do until they're not. How many's that? Jacob asks. Bridger doesn't answer right away. He stares into the fire, counting silently. 12, he says finally. maybe 13. Hard to know for sure. Some cabins I haven't been able to reach in weeks. 12 dead. Out of 30 who started the winter, maybe more, and spring is still weeks away. Anyone talking about leaving, you ask? Bridger shakes his head. Where would they go? Snow's still too deep. Passes are closed. Anyone who tries to walk out now is just choosing a different way to die. He finishes his water, sets the cup down, pushes himself to his feet with a groan. He looks old, older than he should. The winter has aged him a decade in a few months. Just hold on, he says. That's all any of us can do. Hold on and wait. Spring always comes. Sometimes it just takes its time. He leaves. The cabin feels smaller without him. The silence heavier. You sit in the darkness and you think about Harrison, about the 12 others who didn't make it, about the nameless ones in the cabins Bridger couldn't reach, frozen in their beds, waiting for a spring they'll never see. You think about the thin line between you and them, the few morsels of food, the handful of dry wood, the fire that keeps burning when theirs went out. Such small differences, such arbitrary luck. Why you and not them? Why are you still breathing when Harrison isn't? There's no answer. There never is. The mountains don't explain themselves. They just take what they take and leave what they leave, and the survivors are left to wonder why. Night falls, or what passes for night. The darkness inside the cabin deepens from grey to black. You can hear Jacob's breathing, slow and steady, the breath of a man who's learned to sleep through anything. William is murmuring again, his voice too low to make out the words. Outside, the wind is doing its usual dance, but softer now, less angry. You lie in your bed of pine boughs and you think about home, Missouri, the farm, your mother's face, your father's hands calloused and strong from years of working the land, the smell of bread baking, the sound of chickens in the yard, simple things, good things, a world that exists somewhere out there, impossibly far away, on the other side of mountains that might as well be walls. You wonder if you'll ever see it again. When you left 3 years ago, you were certain you would. The mountains were just a detour, a way to make money and see the world before settling down. You'd trap for a few seasons, save up enough for a stake, then head back east and start a life. A wife, children, land of your own. That plan seems like a joke now, a story you told yourself, no more real than the fairy tales your mother used to read you at bedtime. The mountains don't let people go that easily. They get into your blood, into your bones. Even if you survive this winter, even if you make it back to Missouri, you'll never be the same. The cold has changed you. The hunger has changed you. The long nights in the darkness, fighting to stay sane, fighting to stay alive. All of it has left marks that won't wash off. You're a different person than the boy who rode west 3 years ago. Harder, quieter, older in ways that have nothing to do with years. You don't know if that's good or bad. Probably both. Sleep comes eventually, fitful and shallow, broken by dreams you can't remember. You wake in the night to add wood to the fire, moving by instinct in the absolute darkness. The flames catch, flare, settle into a steady burn. You watch them for a while, letting your mind go blank. Tomorrow, just make it tomorrow. The next day brings something unexpected, a thaw, not spring, not yet. But a warm wind from the west, what the old-timers call a chinook. It rolls into the valley sometime before dawn, and when you wake, the air feels different. Softer, less lethal. You push open the cabin door and stand blinking in the light. The temperature has risen 20 degrees, maybe more. The snow is starting to settle, to compact under its own weight. Icicles hang from the buried cabin's roof, dripping water that sparkles in the pale sunlight. Water dripping. You haven't seen that in months. The sound of it is almost musical. Plip, plip, plip. A rhythm you'd forgotten existed. All winter long, the only sounds have been wind and fire and the creak of frozen wood. Now, there's something new, something alive. You step outside, feel the warm wind on your face. It's not warm by any normal standard. Maybe 35 degrees, maybe 40. But after months of temperatures that could kill you in minutes, it feels like summer. You close your eyes and let it wash over you. Jacob comes up behind you, looks at the dripping icicles, says nothing. But there's something in his face that wasn't there yesterday. A flicker, a spark, something that might be hope, or might just be the absence of despair. Chinook, you say. He nods. Won't last. Never does. But still. That word hangs in the air between you. Still, it's something. Still, it's a sign that winter doesn't last forever. Still, somewhere out there, spring is gathering its strength, preparing to push back against the cold. The Chinook brings people out of their burrows. For the first time in weeks, you see other trappers moving through the valley. Thin, haggard figures in ragged furs blinking in the light like moles emerging from underground. They gather near Bridger's cabin, maybe a dozen of them, standing in the warm wind, not talking much, just breathing. You walk over and join them. The faces are familiar and strange at the same time. Men you knew changed by the winter into something else. Beards wild and matted, eyes sunk deep, bodies whittled down to bone and sinew. Nobody talks about how many are missing, about the faces that should be there but aren't, about the cabins that have gone silent, their chimneys cold, their occupants lost to the snow and cold and hunger. Bridger stands in the middle of the group, looking out at the softening landscape. His voice is quiet when he speaks. Few more weeks, maybe a month, then the pass is open. Then we can move. A month. It sounds like forever and no time at all. You've made it this far. Surely you can make it another month. But looking around at the hollow-eyed men surrounding you, you know that some of them won't. The winter isn't done taking. It will claim a few more before it lets go. The only question is who. You stand there in the cabin doorway, letting the warm wind touch your face, listening to the drip of melting ice. And for the first time in months you allow yourself to feel something other than despair. Hope. Fragile and uncertain. But there. The Chinook lasts 3 days. Then the cold returns, the temperature plunging back to its usual brutality. But something has changed. The snow doesn't seem quite as deep. The days seem slightly longer. The light seems a little brighter. Spring is coming. You can feel it now. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. You just have to hold on a little longer. You just have to survive. The real thaw comes in the second week of April. Not a Chinook this time. Not a tease. The genuine thing. The sun climbs higher each day, stays longer, burns hotter. The snow that has buried the world since November begins to surrender. Slowly at first, then faster. You wake one morning to a sound you've almost forgotten. Birdsong. Actual birds, singing in actual trees as if winter never happened. You lie there in your bed of pine boughs, listening, not quite believing. Part of you wonders if you've finally lost your mind, if the birds are just another hallucination like the ones William's been having. But no. When you open the cabin door, they're there. Small brown things, sparrows maybe, hopping through the slush, pecking at the ground where the snow has melted away. Life returning to the valley. Life that had fled or hidden or died, now coming back. The snow is going fast now. What took months to accumulate is vanishing in days. The drifts that reached 15 feet have shrunk to 8, to 5, to 3. The paths between cabins have reappeared, muddy and rutted but passable. The The frozen river that you walked across in January is now running water again, chunks of ice floating downstream like small white boats. And everywhere, the snow is revealing its secrets. The first body you find is a man named Cooper. He'd been travelling between cabins back in February, caught in a storm, never made it to his destination. His partners had searched for him but gave up when the snow got too deep. Now here he is, face down in a drift that's melted down to his shoulders, one arm extended like he was reaching for something. You and Jacob dig him out. His body is preserved, frozen solid, the cold keeping decay at bay. His face is peaceful, eyes closed, no sign of struggle. He probably just lay down when he couldn't go any further. Let the snow cover him like a blanket. Went to sleep and didn't wake up. You bury him properly, or as properly as you can with the ground still half frozen. Dig a shallow grave, pile rocks on top to keep the animals away. Say a few words that don't feel like enough. Cooper had a wife back in Virginia. Children, 2 of them, waiting for their father to come home. He'd shown you a lock of hair once, his daughter's, that he kept in a leather pouch around his neck. Blonde hair, fine as silk. You look for the pouch but don't find it. Maybe it's still under the snow somewhere. Maybe it will turn up when the last drifts melt. Or maybe it's gone forever, like so much else from this winter. Then you move on because there are more bodies to find. 3 more in the valley. Men who died in the open, caught by storms or cold or exhaustion. Men who wandered away from their cabins and never came back. The snow gives them up one by one as it melts, revealing arms and legs and faces that were hidden for months. One of them is Henderson, the man who lost both his horses to the wolves back in February. He made it another month after that somehow, eating God knows what, surviving on pure stubbornness. But the cold got him eventually. You find him sitting against a tree, frozen stiff, rifle across his knees, like he just sat down to rest and never got up. Another is a young man whose name you never learned, a greenhorn who joined the brigade in September, eager and stupid and convinced that the mountains were going to make him rich. He'd asked you questions constantly during the fall trapping. How do you set a trap? How do you skin a beaver? How do you find water in the wilderness? You'd answered patiently, amused by his enthusiasm, envious of his innocence. Now he's lying in a meadow, face up, eyes open to the sky. Whatever killed him, it happened fast. No signs of struggle, no wounds. Maybe his heart just gave out. Maybe the cold took him in his sleep and he never woke up. You close his eyes, say the same inadequate words you said for Cooper, and keep walking. And then there are the cabins. Some of them are quiet. Too quiet. The chimney's cold, the doors frozen shut, no sign of life inside. You approach them with dread, knowing what you're going to find, hoping you're wrong. You're not wrong. The first silent cabin holds 2 men, brothers from Pennsylvania, come west together to make their fortune in fur. They're lying in their beds, buffalo robes pulled up to their chins, faces grey and sunken. The fire pit is cold, filled with old ash. The firewood pile is empty. They ran out of fuel sometime in February probably, and didn't have the strength to go find more. They burned everything they could. The furniture, the door frame, pieces of the walls, and when there was nothing left to burn they lay down and let the cold have them. You recognise one of them. Thomas Mitchell, he called himself, though that might not have been his real name. He'd won money off you at cards during the rendezvous last summer. Good player, quick smile. Had plans to start a trading post when he saved enough. His brother's name you never knew. You stand there for a moment, looking at Thomas's face. Peaceful, almost smiling. You wonder what he was dreaming about when he died. Something warm, you hope. Something green. Should we say something? Jacob asks. Like what? I don't know. A prayer. Something. You try to remember the prayers your mother taught you. The words come back slowly, rusty from disuse. You speak them quietly into the cold air of the cabin. They sound small and inadequate, but they're all you have. When you're done, you close the door and mark it with a pile of stones. Someone will have to come back later and bury them properly, when the ground thaws, when there's time, when anyone has the strength. The second silent cabin is worse. 4 men, dead for weeks, maybe months. The smell hits you before you even get the door open. Rot and decay, held in check by the cold but not stopped entirely. You don't go inside, just close the door, mark the location, and walk away. Some things you don't need to see, some memories you don't need to carry. Bridger keeps a count, writes the names down in a little book he carries, the same book where he tracks beaver pelts and trade goods. 18 dead by his final tally. 18 out of 30 who started the winter, more than half gone. Some of them you knew well, some of them you barely knew at all. But each name in Bridger's book represents a life, a story, a person who had plans and dreams and people waiting for them back home. People who will never know what happened, who will wait and wonder and eventually stop waiting. The survivors gather at Bridger's cabin once the snow has melted enough to move freely. 12 men, not counting Bridger himself. 13 total out of 30. You look around at the faces and barely recognize them. These aren't mountain men anymore. Not the way you remember mountain men looking. They're skeletons wrapped in skin, cheekbones jutting, eyes huge in hollow sockets, beards hanging in tangled mats, clothes that used to fit now hanging loose on wasted frames. They look like ghosts, like the walking dead, like men who should have died but somehow didn't. You look like them too. You've seen your reflection in the river, know what the winter has done to you. Jacob stands beside you, his left hand wrapped in dirty bandages. The doctor among the survivors, a trapper named Wells who knows something about medicine, has already looked at his fingers. 2 of them will have to come off. The black has spread too far, the tissue too damaged to save. Jacob took the news with a nod and nothing more. 2 fingers is a small price for survival. William is there too, though he's not really there. He stands at the edge of the group staring at nothing, lips moving in silent conversation. The winter broke something in him, something that might not heal. Bridger has arranged for 2 men to escort him back to civilization when the pass is open. Whether he'll ever be the same is a question nobody can answer. Bridger addresses the group. His voice is hoarse, worn thin by months of cold and smoke and worry. "We made it," he says. "Those of us standing here, we made it. That means something. That counts for something." Nobody cheers. Nobody celebrates. The victory, if you can call it that, feels hollow. Too many empty spaces where friends should be standing. The passes should open in 2-3 weeks. We'll wait here until then, rest up, try to get our strength back. There's game in the valley now. Elk coming down from the high country. Deer. We can eat. We can recover. He pauses, looks around at the ragged group. Then we head for rendezvous. Green River, same as always. Tell our stories, sell our pelts, and figure out what comes next. What comes next? You haven't thought that far ahead. The winter consumed everything, left no room for plans or futures, just survival. Just the next meal, the next fire, the next sunrise. Now there's suddenly a future again, a tomorrow, a next week, a next month. The space opens up in front of you, empty and strange, and you don't quite know what to do with it. The game returns with the thaw. Elk first, big bulls with new antlers growing. picking their way down from the high country to graze on the first green grass of spring, then deer, then smaller things, rabbits, grouse, squirrels. The valley comes alive again, animals everywhere after months of emptiness. It's like they all just reappear, materializing from wherever they'd been hiding, called back by some ancient instinct that says winter is over, time to move, time to feed, time to live. You hunt again. Real hunting, not the desperate scavenging of the winter months. You track a bull elk through the greening valley, moving slow, reading the signs, bent grass where he passed, fresh droppings, a scrape on a tree where he rubbed his antlers. The old skills come back to you, rusty but functional, and you feel something stirring in your chest that might be joy. You find him in a meadow, grazing, unaware of your presence. You settle into a shooting position, steady your breathing, wait for the clean shot. The rifle kicks against your shoulder, the smoke clears, and the elk falls. No suffering, no struggle, just a quick, clean death. You butcher it right there, working quickly, efficiently, muscle memory taking over. Your hands remember the motions, even if your mind has gone somewhere else. The meat is fresh and clean, no rot, no freezer burn, just good red protein that your body's been screaming for. You pack as much as you can carry and haul it back to camp, legs shaking from the effort but heart singing. That night, you eat until your stomach hurts. All of you do. Roasted elk, cooked over an open fire, grease dripping into the flames and making them flare. After months of leather and horse meat and frozen scavenged scraps, it tastes like the finest meal ever prepared. Better than anything you've eaten in your life. Better than your mother's cooking. Better than the feast at your sister's wedding. You eat and eat and eat, your shrunken stomach struggling to hold it all. And when you're done, you lie back and stare at the stars and feel, for the first time in months, something like happiness. Not joy exactly. The winter took too much for that. But something close, something warm and quiet and good. The stars are the same ones you watched back in September, before the snows came. Same constellations, same patterns. But they look different now. Brighter. More precious. You understand something about them that you didn't understand before. They don't care about you. The stars, the mountains, the whole vast indifferent universe. None of it cares whether you live or die, succeed or fail, make it home or freeze in adrift. You're just another animal, scrabbling for survival on a spinning rock, and when you're gone, the stars will keep burning, and the mountains will keep standing, and the snow will keep falling every winter, forever. But somehow, that thought isn't depressing anymore. It's freeing. The universe doesn't care, so you get to decide what matters. You get to choose your own meaning, your own purpose, your own reasons for going on. You choose to live. You choose to remember the men who didn't make it. You choose to carry their stories forward, to tell people what happened here, to make sure the winter of 1836-37 doesn't disappear into silence. That's something. That's enough. The days grow longer. The snow continues to melt. Green appears on the hillsides, tentative at first, then spreading. The air smells different. Wet earth and growing things and the promise of warmth. You spend the time recovering, eating as much as you can hold, letting your body rebuild the muscle and fat it consumed over the winter. Walking short distances at first, then longer ones, testing legs that have weakened from months of inactivity, mending gear, cleaning rifles, preparing for the journey to rendezvous. The pelts you trapped back in the fall are still there, bundled and stored, preserved by the cold. Not as many as you'd hoped for. The early snows cut the trapping season short, but enough to make the winter worthwhile, if anything can make a winter like this worthwhile. You sort through them one afternoon, checking for damage, counting the take. Beaver mostly, their fur thick and prime, some otter, some marten, maybe $300 worth if the prices hold, maybe less if the market has dropped further. $300 for 6 months of hell, for eating your moccasins and burying your friends and lying in a snow cave wondering if you'd ever see morning. It doesn't seem like enough, but then again, you're alive. 18 men aren't. That has to count for something. Bridger announces one morning that the passes are open. A scout went up and checked, fought through the last of the drifts, made it through to the other side. The way is clear. Time to move. You pack up what little you have left. Your rifle, your traps, your bundle of pelts, the clothes on your back, worn thin and patched a dozen times, a few tools, a few memories. The cabin that kept you alive all winter looks small in the daylight. The logs are grey and weathered. The roof is sagging where the snow weight pressed it down. The snowbanks that buried it have melted to dirty piles, revealing the rough construction underneath. It's ugly, primitive, a hole in the ground with walls. It saved your life. You stand there for a moment, looking at it, remembering the smoke and the darkness and the endless cold, the fat lamp flickering, the sound of wolves outside, William talking to ghosts, Jacob counting out the food piece by precious piece. You should feel something profound, some grand realization about the meaning of survival, but mostly you just feel tired and grateful and ready to leave. Jacob comes up beside you. His hand is freshly bandaged, 2 fingers shorter than it used to be. Wells did the amputation yesterday, quick and clean. Jacob barely flinched. "You ready?" he asks. You take one last look at the cabin, the prison that became a home, the tomb that became a cradle. "Yeah," you say, "I'm ready." You turn your back on the winter and start walking toward the morning sun. Behind you, the cabin sits empty, waiting for the next storm, the next winter, the next desperate soul who needs its shelter. The mountains don't care who lives or dies. They just keep standing, keep waiting, keep being what they've always been. But you're still here, still walking, still alive, and somewhere ahead, spring is waiting. The journey to rendezvous takes 3 weeks. 3 weeks of walking through a world coming back to life. Meadows turning green, streams running clear and cold, wildflowers pushing up through the last patches of snow. After 6 months of white and grey, and the endless monotony of winter, the colours are almost painful to look at. Your eyes have forgotten what green means. You travel slow. Nobody has the strength for speed. The group strings out along the trail, each man moving at his own pace, resting when he needs to, eating when he can. The game is plentiful now, and you hunt as you go, rebuilding bodies that have been stripped to bone and sinew. Jacob walks beside you most days. His hand has healed, or healed as much as it's going to. The stumps where his fingers used to be have scarred over, pink and shiny, still tender to the touch. He doesn't complain, just adjusts, learns to grip his rifle differently, learns to tie knots with 8 fingers instead of 10. "Could have been worse," he says one evening, sitting by the fire, flexing his damaged hand. "Could have been my whole arm. Could have been my life." That's the math now. Everything measured against death. 2 fingers? Small price. Half your body weight? You'll gain it back. Friends buried in unmarked graves. At least you're not lying beside them. It's a grim way to think, but it's the only way that makes sense after a winter like that. William travels with the group but apart from it. He walks when everyone walks, stops when everyone stops. But he doesn't talk, doesn't engage. His eyes are fixed on something far away, something the rest of you can't see. The 2 men assigned to escort him back east stick close, make sure he eats, make sure he doesn't wander off. You tried talking to him once, a few days out from the winter camp, asked him how he was doing, asked if he needed anything. He looked at you like he'd never seen you before, like you were a stranger speaking a language he didn't understand. Then he turned away and went back to his silent conversation with people who weren't there. You don't try again. The mountains give way to foothills, the foothills to rolling plains. The air gets warmer, the snow becomes a memory. By the time you reach the Green River Valley in early July, summer's taken full hold, and the winter of 1836-37 feels like something that happened to someone else. A story, a dream, something that couldn't possibly be real. But your body remembers. The way your clothes still hang loose, the way your legs ache after a few hours of walking, the way you flinch at sudden cold, even when it's just a breeze off the river. Your body will always remember. The rendezvous is already underway when you arrive. You see the smoke first rising from dozens of campfires scattered across the valley floor, then the tents, then the horses, then the people, hundreds of them, trappers and traders and Indians, all gathered in the same spot they've been gathering for 12 years now. The smell hits you next. Wood smoke and roasting meat and whiskey and horses and unwashed men. Normally it would be overwhelming. After 6 months in a buried cabin, breathing smoke and grease and your own stink, it smells like civilization, like life. But something's different this year. You feel it before you can name it. A heaviness in the air, a quietness beneath the noise. The rendezvous is smaller than last year, you're sure of it. Fewer tents, fewer horses, fewer trappers lounging around the fires, trading stories and whiskey. The trading company's presence is diminished, their goods spread thin, their prices lower than they should be. The usual carnival atmosphere is muted, like a party where half the guests didn't show up. And the faces, so many faces missing. You walk through the camp looking for people you know and find absence after absence. Thompson, who used to arm wrestle anyone for a jug of whiskey, gone. The French-Canadian brothers who trapped the upper Missouri, always laughing, always singing songs in a language you didn't understand, gone. Old Martinez, who'd been coming to rendezvous since the very first one back in 1825, who claimed he could smell beaver from a mile away, gone. Some of them died in the winter, others just didn't come back, gave up the trade, headed east, found other ways to make a living. The mountains have been emptying out for years, you realise. The trappers getting scarcer along with the beaver. You just didn't notice until now, when the absences add up to something impossible to ignore. Bridger's already here, sitting by a fire with some of the company men. You see Osborne Russell too, the young trapper who left the Columbia River Company to go free. He's got a journal open on his knee, writing something, his face thoughtful and far away. You find a spot near the river, make camp, and let yourself rest. Really rest. For the first time since September, the stories come out that night. Around the fires, passing jugs of whiskey that burn going down and warm you from the inside, the survivors of the winter of 1836-37 start talking, comparing notes, putting together the pieces of what happened across those terrible months. Your brigade lost 18 out of 30. Other groups did better, some did worse. A party that wintered on the upper Yellowstone came in with 3 men out of 12. A lone trapper who holed up in a cave near the Wind River Range made it through alone, eating nothing but marmots and his own boots for the last 6 weeks. He shows everyone his feet, missing 3 toes to frostbite, and laughs about it like it's the funniest thing in the world. Another man tells about watching wolves drag his partner away. Couldn't do anything about it. Out of ammunition, too weak to fight. just watched from the cabin door as his friend disappeared into the trees, still screaming. Someone else talks about eating his dog. A hound he'd raised from a pup, had with him for 8 years. Loyal thing. Slept at his feet every night. When the food ran out, the dog was all he had left. He cried while he butchered it, he says. Cried while he ate it too, but he's still here. The dog kept him alive one last time. The numbers add up to something ugly. Maybe 50 dead across all the brigades. Maybe more. The worst winter anyone can remember. Worse than 1830. Worse than 1833. The kind of winter that becomes legend, that gets told and retold around campfires for decades, growing darker and stranger with each telling. You listen to the stories and recognize pieces of your own experience. The buried cabins, the fat lamps, the leather boiled until it softened, the wolves circling, the snow that never stopped. Everyone went through the same thing, give or take. Everyone learned the same lessons. Survival isn't about being strong. It's about being stubborn, about refusing to give up even when giving up makes sense, about doing whatever it takes no matter how desperate, no matter how degrading. Eating your moccasins, burning your gear for warmth, digging through frozen carcasses for scraps of meat. The mountain men who made it through aren't heroes. They're just the ones who didn't die, the ones who got lucky or got stubborn or got both. The line between them and the ones who froze in their cabins is so thin you could miss it if you blinked. That's what the winter taught you. Not some grand lesson about human endurance or the triumph of will. Just the simple truth that life is fragile, death is close, and the only thing separating you from the void is a handful of small choices made over and over again. Keep the fire burning, keep the chimney clear, keep eating even when the food makes you gag, keep walking even when your legs scream to stop, keep going, that's all, just keep going. The rendezvous lasts 2 weeks. You trade your pelts for supplies, get less than you hoped but more than you expected. The market is soft, the buyers say. Beaver's not worth what it used to be. Silk hats are the fashion now back east. The demand for fur is dropping. You hear the same thing from everyone. The trade is dying. The good times are over. Another few years and there won't be any rendezvous at all. Just scattered men work in scattered streams, trying to scratch a living from mountains that have already given up their best. The old-timers saw it coming. Bridger, Russell, the ones who've been out here since the beginning. They talk about the early days like they're already history. The rivers thick with beaver, the prices high, the sense that the wilderness was infinite and would never run out. That world is gone now, trapped out, used up. What's left is scraps and memories. You sit by the river one evening watching the water slide past, thinking about what comes next. Do you stay in the mountains, chase the last of the beaver, watch the trade die around you? Do you head east, back to Missouri, try to pick up the life you left behind? Do you go somewhere else entirely, California maybe, or Oregon, places where the future is still being written? You don't know. For the first time in your adult life, you don't have a plan. The mountains were supposed to be temporary, a few years of adventure before settling down. Now they've become your whole world, and that world is ending. Bridger wanders over, sits down beside you, doesn't say anything for a while, just watches the river like you're watching it. The evening light turns everything gold. Hell of a winter, he says finally. Hell of a winter, you agree. You heading back out next fall? You think about it. The cold, the hunger, the darkness, the wolf eyes glowing in the firelight, the friends you buried in the snow. Then you think about the other thing, the beauty of the mountains in autumn, when the aspens turn gold and the air smells like wood smoke and winter coming. The satisfaction of pulling a prime beaver pelt from a trap. The freedom of walking through country that no white man has ever seen before. The wilderness doesn't care about you, but you care about it. That has to count for something. Yeah, you say. I reckon I am. Bridger nods like he expected that answer. Good man. We'll need steady hands next year. Not many of those left. He stands up, stretches, looks out at the mountains rising purple in the distance. It's ending, you know, all of this. Another 10 years and there won't be any trappers left. Just farmers and soldiers and missionaries, turning the whole place into something civilized. That bother you? He thinks about it. Some, but I've had my time, seen things nobody else will ever see, done things nobody else will ever do. Can't ask for more than that. He walks away, leaving you alone with the river and the fading light. The rendezvous breaks up in late July. Trappers scatter back into the mountains, heading for their fall hunting grounds. Traders pack up their goods and start the long journey back to St. Louis. The Green River Valley empties out, returning to the silence and solitude that are its natural state. You leave with a small group heading north. New men, some of them. Replacements for the ones who didn't make it. Young and eager and convinced that the mountains are going to make them rich. They remind you of yourself 3 years ago, before the winters taught you what the mountains really are. You don't tell them about the winter of 1836-37. They'll learn soon enough. Or they won't, and someone will bury them in the spring when the snow melts. That's the way of things out here. The mountains don't give warnings. They just take what they take. The peaks rise around you as you walk, vast and ancient and utterly indifferent to your passing. They were here before you came. They'll be here long after you're gone. Whatever you do in their shadow, whatever you achieve or suffer or survive, they won't notice or care. But you'll remember. That's your job now. To remember the men who didn't make it. To carry their stories forward. To make sure that Harrison and Cooper and the Mitchell brothers and all the others don't just disappear into silence. Their names might fade from the world, but they'll live on in you, in the stories you tell, in the lessons you carry. The winter of 1836-37 happened. People died. People survived. And the line between them was thinner than anyone wanted to believe. You walk north, into the mountains, into whatever comes next. The sun is warm on your shoulders. The trail stretches out ahead, winding through meadows and forests and high rocky passes. Somewhere up ahead there's a stream with beaver in it. Somewhere up ahead there's a camp to make and a fire to build and another winter to prepare for. But that's all in the future. Right now, in this moment, you're just walking, one foot in front of the other, moving forward, staying alive, the same thing you've been doing all along, the same thing you'll keep doing until you can't anymore. And when that day comes, when the mountains finally take you like they've taken so many others, you hope someone will remember. You hope someone will tell your story around a campfire someday, passing a jug of whiskey, keeping the memory alive. That's all any of us can hope for, really. To be remembered, to matter, to leave something behind that says we were here. The trail curves upward, toward the peaks. The shadows grow long. The air turns cool as evening approaches. You keep walking. Jacob falls into step beside you. His hand is healed now, as much as it ever will be. 8 fingers instead of 10. He's learned to make it work. Hell of a year, he says. Hell of a year, you agree. Same time next year? You laugh. Actually laugh. It feels strange in your chest, like an old friend coming home. Same time next year. You walk in comfortable silence for a while. The mountains rise around you, vast and eternal, and for the first time in a long time they don't look like enemies. They just look like mountains. Beautiful, dangerous, home. Behind you, in a valley you'll never see again, a buried cabin sits empty in the gathering dusk. The snow has melted, the logs are weathering in the sun, wildflowers are pushing up through the dirt floor, life going on, the way it always does. Ahead, the trail stretches toward the peaks, toward the beaver streams, toward whatever comes next. You take a breath of mountain air, let it fill your lungs, let it remind you that you're alive, and you keep walking. The stars are coming out now, one by one, scattered across the darkening sky. The same stars that watched over you all winter. The same stars that watched men live and die in these mountains for 10,000 years before you came. They don't care about your stories, but you do, and you'll tell them, to anyone who listens. So the men who didn't make it won't be forgotten. So the winter of 1836-37 will be remembered. Not as a tragedy, not as a horror story, as a testament to what people can endure, to what they can survive, to the thin line between living and dying and the stubborn refusal to cross it. That's the only legacy that matters. You're still here. You made it. And tomorrow you'll keep going. Your eyes grow heavy now, here in your own warm bed, so far from those frozen peaks. The story is over. The survivors made it through. And outside your window the world is quiet and safe, and nothing like the winter of 1836-37. Sleep comes easy when you remember how hard it used to be. When you remember that warmth and safety and a full belly are gifts, not guarantees. So close your eyes, let the story fade, let the mountains recede into memory and dream. Tomorrow is waiting, but tonight you rest. You've earned it.